Hi, folks. I've been told that Volume 1 of this recording, done some time ago, was well received, but considered insufficient. So I'm here to rectify that. Rectify is an interesting word, isn't it? Sounds vaguely anal. Well, we won't go into that. Let's just go into Volume 2 of Napalm and Silly Putty. Have you noticed that quite often when you leave someone, they ask you to relay an affectionate message to someone else? You know, they'll say, "Give my love to Klaus. Tell Klaus Rebecca sends her love." Do you mind that? Do you mind being used that way? The awesome responsibility of carrying Rebecca's love to Klaus? Suppose you don't see Klaus. What do you do with Rebecca's love? Carry it around? Give it to someone else? "Wilhelm, I can't find Klaus. Here's some of Rebecca's love." Suppose Wilhelm doesn't know Rebecca. Can he legally accept her love? Especially when it was originally intended for Klaus. Or suppose you give Wilhelm Rebecca's love for Klaus, and then you run into Klaus. What do you give him? All you had was Rebecca's love, and you've already gone and given that to Wilhelm. Can you reasonably ask Wilhelm to give back Rebecca's love? Maybe he's gotten used to it by now. Can Klaus sue Wilhelm? Can Wilhelm be arrested? Can you be arrested for transporting love across a state line? All right, back to reality. Just for the sake of argument, let's leave Wilhelm out of this altogether. Suppose Rebecca gives you her love to give to Klaus, and you do see Klaus. What form should the love take? Can you risk giving Klaus a tongue kiss? Which brings up another possibility. Maybe Klaus is gay. Klaus doesn't want Rebecca's love. Klaus wants Wilhelm's love. If Klaus tells you to give his love to Wilhelm, just tell him, "Bullshit, Klaus. You give your own love to Wilhelm. I'm going to find Rebecca." Now, sometimes people don't want you to give their love to someone else. They only want to give their regards. That's all they're sending that day, regards. That's not as important as love, is it? No. By the way, do you always relay the type of affection the sender intends? I don't. Generally, I wait till the last minute and then decide what the other person deserves. For instance, Susan might say to me, "Give my love to Dave." Well, I might not feel Dave is deserving of Susan's love. Dave might be one of those people who piss me off. I'll probably just give him a few regards. Keep him in his place. I feel it's my decision. After all, I'm the one who's doing all the work. And if I really don't like the recipient, I might reduce the level of affection by an even greater degree. Susan might say, "Give all my love to Dave and tell him I can't wait to see him again so I can hold him in my arms, kiss his sweet soft lips, and make love to him all night." And I'll say, "Dave, Susan said hello." Screw Dave. That's what he gets for pissing me off. Then there are the recipients who try to anticipate what degree of affection they're going to receive. "Did Susan send her love?" "No, Dave, she only sent her regards." "That's funny. Usually she sends her love." "Well, not this time. In fact, she specifically told me, 'Don't give Dave any of my love.' It seems she's running short of love and has to be careful whom she gives it to. However, she did say she's overstocked with regards and wants you to have a whole bunch of them. So be satisfied, Dave. Take your regards and get the fuck out of my life." Well, he should damn well be satisfied with regards. It's a lot better than simply being sent someone's best. There are some people who just send you their best. "Give my best to Dave." Your best what, Susan? If this is your best, perhaps you'd better keep it to yourself. And yet, receiving someone's best is better than simply being remembered to someone. That's the lowest of all. It's hardly even worth telling the poor person. "Remember me to Dave." "Okay. Dave, you remember Susan?" "Yes." "Well, she remembers you too." That's it. My job is done. I'm off now to find Tex, so I can tell him Billy Bob said howdy. One final thing. There are times when someone wants you to convey more than simply love. They want you to give someone a big hug and kiss. Now they've got you trafficking in sex. "Give Joachim a big hug and a kiss for me." Usually it's women. I find that women are a bit more expressive at times like these. And sometimes they're really explicit. "Bye-bye, Elena. Drive carefully. Give Flocko a nice blowjob for me. And don't forget to lick his asshole." "Okay, Belinda, but next time, let's get Klaus to take care of that." You know what bothers me? People who want to know the time. The ones who come up and say to me, "What time is it?" as if I personally were responsible for keeping track of such things. Sometimes they'll phrase it a little differently. They'll say, "Do you have the time?" And I say, "No, I don't believe I do. I certainly didn't have it this morning when I left the house. Could you possibly have left it somewhere?" You know, now that you mention it, I believe the Navy has the time, in Washington. They keep it in an observatory or something, and they just let a little of it out each day. Not too much, of course, just enough. They wouldn't want to give us too much time. We might not use it wisely. Sometimes in a playful mood, when asked if I have the time, I'll say yes, and simply walk away. I do that because I hate to disappoint people. You see, there is no time. There's just no time. I don't mean we're late, there's no time. I mean there is no time. After all, when is it? Do you know? No one really knows when it is. We made the whole thing up. It's a human invention. There are no numbers in the sky. Believe me, I've looked. They're not there. We made the whole thing up. So when are we? Sometimes we think we know where we are, but we really don't know when we are. For all we know, it could be the middle of last week. And the time zones are no help. They're all different. In fact, in parts of India, the time zones actually operate on the half hour instead of the hour. What is that all about? Does anyone really know what time it is? And never mind a piddly little half-hour difference in India. How about thousands of years? The major calendars disagree by thousands of years. To the Chinese, this is, 4699. The Hebrews think it's 5762. The Muslims swear it's 1422. No telling what the Mayans and Aztecs would say if they were still around. I guess their time ran out. Remember, folks, these are calendars we're talking about. Instruments specifically designed to keep track of time. And they're all different. And they're not just off by a couple of weeks. This is thousands of goddamn years we're talking about. How did that happen? Our current Gregorian calendar is such an amateur show that every 4 years we have to cram in an extra day just to make the whole thing work. We call it February 29th. Personally, I don't believe it. Deep down, I know it's really March 1st. I mean, it just feels like March 1st, doesn't it? But even that simple quadrennial adjustment doesn't fix things, so every 100 years we suspend that rule and dispense with the extra day. Unless, of course, the year is divisible by 400, in which case we suspend the suspension and add the extra day. But that's still not quite enough, so every 4,000 years we suspend that rule too, and back comes February 29th. Here's how we got to this sorry state. The Julian calendar was introduced in 46 BC, the Roman year 709, but it was off by 11 minutes a year. So by 1582 there was an accumulated error of 10 days. Accordingly, that year, Pope Gregory XIII decided that the day following October 4th would be called October 15th. They just skipped 10 days, threw them out. Officially, in 1582, no one was born in France, Italy, Spain, or Portugal during the period October 5th through October 14th. Weird, eh? But even weirder, Britain didn't adopt the Gregorian calendar till 1752 when they dropped 11 days out of September. Since this also applied to the American colonies, officially no one was born here from September 3rd through September 13th, 1752, except Indians. By the way, that was the same year New Year's Day was moved from March 25th to January 1st. The way it had been handled before, for example, was that March 24th, 1750, would be followed by March 25th, 1751. Pretty fucked up, huh? And you thought that big millennium party you went to was being held right on time. We try hard to keep track of time, but it's futile. You can't pin it down. For example, there's a moment coming. It's not here yet. It's still in the future. It's on the way. It hasn't arrived. It's getting closer. Here it is. Shit, it's gone. We use words like now, but it's a useless word because every time you say it, it means something different. Can you tell me the time? Well, which time did you want, now? Or the time you asked me? Or how about now? Is this the time you want? Speak up, this stuff isn't standing still. And think of the phrase, just now. Did you hear that? What? Just now. You mean just then? Yes, just then. Wait, there it is again. When? Just now. Everything we think of as now is either the very recent past or the very near future. There's no present. Welcome to the present. Shoom! Gone again. It's all so imprecise that people sometimes don't bother with minutes and hours at all. They keep things purposely vague. What time you got? I got just after. Just after? Geez, my watch is slow. I got going on. It's amazing how something as precisely calibrated as time can be described so loosely, especially where short periods of time are concerned. We say at once, immediately, right away, just like that, no time at all, nothing flat, at a moment's notice. And one that I never understood, before you can say Jack Robinson. You don't hear that much anymore, do you? Maybe Jack ran out of time. Maybe he was an Aztec. And let's not forget a jiffy or a flash. Do you know which is quicker? Well, I looked it up. In fact, there are 2 jiffies in a flash, and there are 6 flashes in the twinkling of an eye. No one seems to know how many twinklings of an eye there are in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. And by the way, why is it 2 shakes of a lamb's tail? Wouldn't the basic unit of measurement be 1 shake of a lamb's tail? Another vague word is soon. For me, soon has an emotional quality. It has great potential for sadness. Is Daddy ever coming to visit us again? Yes, dear. When? Soon. Here's a spooky one. Sooner than you think. Wow, sooner than I think. That's like before you know it. I'll be back before you know it. Zoom! Holy shit, he did it. Sooner or later, one of these days, any day now, from time to time, every now and then, a little while. A little while is nice. So gentle. I'll be home in a little while. That wouldn't bother you, would it? I think anyone could wait a little while. It doesn't sound too threatening. Your father is sick, but he still has a little while. That's different from a short time, isn't it? A short time sounds terminal. Your father has only a short time. If I were about to be executed, I'd much rather have a little while than a short time. By the way, do you have a favorite period of time? It isn't easy to select a favorite period of time. There are so many appealing ones. I have a few. To me, the most useful period of time is 5 minutes. That seems to be the one most people choose when they're pressed. I'll be there in 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, will you? What, are you kidding? I could fix that thing in 5 minutes. That's all most people want. 5 minutes. A good, solid, respectable period of time. And it goes by fast. I think I could do just about anything for 5 minutes. Even the most distasteful task. Let's go talk to George Bush. Are you kidding? He's an asshole. Look, just 5 minutes, okay? Okay, 5 minutes. But no more. After that, I'm gonna puke. 15 minutes is a popular period of time, but it has an institutional ring to it, a regulatory quality. Sounds like it's associated with something either compulsory or forbidden. The exchange window will only be open for 15 minutes. You have 15 minutes to fill out the forms. In 15 minutes, we will be coming around, and I like 20 minutes better. 20 minutes sounds kind of free and sporty. I'll be back to pick up those test papers in 15 minutes. Then you'll have a 20-minute break. Hey, guys, cover me with the boss, will you? I'll be back in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Just enough time to get laid. Have a good time. What exactly is wrong with the inmates running the asylum? It seems to me they're in an ideal position to know just what's needed. When it comes to my organs, I've decided to donate only my prostate and testicles, with the stipulation that they go to one of those lovely feminists. Here's something no one ever said before. Big bats down to 1-5, 5 over cross up the thingo, nose, baseball, hieroglyphics, hopscotch, pouch. Inevitably, 2, 4, 8, 4, 8, 4, 8, 4, 8. I with the 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Down here, mother, we're all home now. So long, Jill. Beep, beep. Hungry, hungry. Are you? I couldn't stand it. Not in my house. Up yours too, Don. He's packing them in. We'll all try it. 50-50? Okay, but not me. No one ever said that before. No one ever wrote that. Not even Shakespeare. I'm proud of that. Civilization began its downhill path the day some guy first uttered the words, "A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do." They say that if you live to be 100, your lucky number goes up by 1. As near as I can tell, jack shit and diddly squat are roughly the same amount. What do you think about some guy who hears a voice in his head that tells him to kill his entire family, and he does it? Is that the only thing these voices ever tell paranoid guys to do, kill people? Doesn't a voice ever say, "Go take a shit on the salad bar at Wendy's"? Doesn't a voice tell a guy to take out his dick on the merry-go-round? Actually, some guys do take out their dicks on the merry-go-round, but usually it's their own idea. In the old days, white people used to put black grease paint on their faces and perform minstrel shows. Boy, that must have been really interesting. When I first heard the song "Don't Worry, Be Happy," I realized it was exactly the kind of mindless philosophy that Americans would respond to. It would make a great national motto, right along with "Me First." Here's a little-known fact. When the stock exchange closes, the guy who comes out on the balcony with that big hammer slams it on the head of the person who lost the most money that day. America has too many fake Irish pubs. Giving your bar an Irish name doesn't make it a pub. The word pub is earned the hard way. Tons and tons of puke and thousands of shattered cheekbones. McDonald's breakfast for under $1 is actually more expensive than that. You have to factor in the cost of bypass surgery. May I make it clear once and for all that I don't care what country the Pope is in? I'm really not interested. All the Pope ever does is go around to places where people make $6 a year and tell them to have more children. Isn't that bright and responsible and compassionate? Such a bright, responsible, compassionate man. If the Pope wants to travel around flaunting his wealth and encouraging poor people to have children, let him do it privately. And for God's sakes, keep it off television. The Pope is not news. No one who has had taps played for them has ever been able to hear it. Although it's true blondes have more fun, it's important to remember they also have more VD. If you watch a sitcom carefully, you can see that it's really nothing more than a series of doors opening and closing with a series of jack-offs entering and exiting. They have a new roach spray. Doesn't kill the roaches, but it fills them with self-doubt as to whether or not they're in the right house. I'm sure looters don't call it looting. They probably think of it as extreme shopping. One good reason for maintaining only a small circle of friends is that 3 out of 4 murders are committed by people who knew the victim. If you live on the wrong side of the tracks, but get up on the right side of the bed, do those things cancel each other out? Probably not. Professional soldiers are people who die for a living. Here's some fun you can have. Go into a photography shop and ask the man if you can buy the pictures of the other people in the window. Say, "How much for that heavyset couple?" I guarantee they'll stare at you a long time. In fact, they might even back up several feet. Whenever they say someone got hit by a stray bullet, I wonder about the choice of words. It seems to me that the bullet isn't stray at all. It's doing exactly what physics predicts, traveling in a straight line. What's so stray about that? Everyone knows by now sports is big business, but the major sports have grown kind of boring and predictable, and the public has become jaded. So I'm suggesting a few changes that would add excitement to the games and increase their entertainment value. Baseball has one major problem: not enough serious injuries. A lot of baseball's so-called injuries are just a strained this or a sore whatchamacallit. In today's culture, that's not good enough. Fans are crying out for someone to really be hurt badly. So, to raise the injury level, what I would do is place 30 to 40 landmines in the outfield. The kind of mines that spray thousands of tiny nails when they explode. Not only will this add excitement, It would also provide a refreshing element of surprise. There's a high, lazy fly ball to right field. O'Neill drifts over, bats his glove. Bam! Holy fucking shit! Oh, good Lord! Oh, precious, precious Lord! Baseball is also accused of being too slow. Here's something would not only speed up the game, but also provide a welcome opportunity for serious injuries. Like most good ideas, it's uncomplicated. If the pitcher hits the batter with a ball, the batter is out. That's it. A simple idea, but it could make quite a difference. And maybe if the ball hits the batter in the head, it could be a double play. I don't know, I'm not an expert on rules, but it's certainly worth a try. And just think, a good control pitcher could have a perfect game just by hitting 27 guys in a row. In fact, if you had 2 quality pitchers out there, the fans could be out of that ballpark in half an hour, on their way home to watch football on TV, where they could see some serious goddamn injuries. Now, football. For many of you fans, football is already a perfect game. Its particular combination of speed, strategy, and brute force seems just right for the American psyche. But even a well-thought-out game like football can use a little help from a fun-loving guy like me. I would start by improving the coin toss, by making it a full-contact event. While the coin is in the air, the team captains should be allowed to kick the officials. It would get things going on a positive note. Remember, this is a sport that owes its origin to the practice of English soldiers playfully kicking around the head of a Dane during the lulls in combat. Now, to the game itself. I think football should limit itself to only one rule. Each down begins in an orderly manner. That's it. After that, the players should be allowed to do whatever they want. If there's a fight, you move it off to one side of the field. Let it run its course, no restrictions. If several 300-pound linemen are crippling a place kicker, fine. Let them continue. We shouldn't be trying to suppress the natural exuberance of athletes. Keep in mind, these men are physical freaks, full of drugs and anger, and they're here to entertain us. They enjoy being injured. Let them go about their business. So much for upgrading the violence. Here's my suggestion for adding excitement. Currently, each team is allowed 45 players on the squad, but most of them stand around watching the game from the sidelines. If I were in charge, this would not be happening. Instead, I would have all 90 men out on the field at all times. Offense, defense, special teams, everyone. What football really needs is 90 steroid monstrosities geeked on amphetamines racing around the field trying to hurt one another. Here's another way to spice up the game. Leave the injured players on the field. Let them lie there. These men are supposed to be tough. You can't coddle them just because they break something. Let the other guys play around them. If they get stepped on, tough titty. These macho pinheads are always talking about how it's a big war going on out there. Fine. Let the Red Cross come around and pick them up. And regarding this taunting behavior that so many people find offensive, I don't see the problem. In fact, I don't think taunting goes nearly far enough. In my opinion, and I'm certainly no professional athlete, after a good hard tackle, the defensive player should be allowed to pull down his pants and masturbate on the man he tackled. It seems like a simple thing, but it would change the whole tempo of the game. And if he can't ejaculate because 60,000 people are watching, you hit him with a 15-yard penalty for delay of game. I end my suggestions for improving football by taking a look at one of those game-end rituals, the pouring of Gatorade on the winning coach. To my mind, this is far too fruity for football. It's barely appropriate for a 6th-grade dodgeball team. What ought to happen is the winning team should be allowed to come across the field and spike the losing coach. Just spike him. 4 linebackers turn him upside down and pile drive him head first into the ground. Give him an incentive to work a little harder on next week's game plan. And now the evening news. Police in Maine announced today they have broken up a ring of amphetamine users. 6 of the speed freaks were arrested on the spot. Another 4 got away by running completely across Canada. It has been disclosed that several years ago, when Mother Teresa won the Nobel Peace Prize, she returned the money, claiming it had germs on it. A man who was attempting to walk around the world drowned today on the first leg of his journey, which would have taken him from San Francisco to Honolulu. The owner of a Florida massage parlor has been arrested by police. Quote, "There weren't any serious violations," said the officers. "She just rubbed us the wrong way." Unquote. Doctors treating a 90-year-old pregnant woman claim that because of her advanced age, she will have a grown-up. A Boston man who last year shot and killed all 12 members of a jury that convicted him of murder goes on trial again today. Courtroom insiders say jury selection is expected to take quite some time. Silent film star Mark Dunbar died today in Hollywood. He had no last words. However, he did wiggle his eyebrows and make several exaggerated gestures with his arms. A Cincinnati man has revealed that last month a local hospital, instead of giving him a vasectomy, castrated him. A hospital spokesman explained, "It all started as a joke. The doctors pretended they were going to castrate him, but he got real snotty, so they went ahead and did it to teach him a lesson." The patient, though upset, seemed philosophical. He said, "The way I look at it, it's that much less to wash." A New Hampshire inventor has developed a machine he claims will grant him any wish. Reporters were greeted at his home by hundreds of naked women who said they had been blowing him for the past 6 months. A 65-year-old fitness expert trotting backward from Winnipeg to Chile in an effort to promote backward trotting was killed today when she was hit by a truck head-on from the rear. And finally, on the lighter side, here's a human interest story about man's best friend. It seems 65-year-old James Driscoll was asleep in his downtown hotel room last week when he was awakened by the sound of a dog barking. When he awoke, the room was filled with smoke and he could not see to get out. The dog led him out of the room, down the hall, and into an elevator shaft where he plunged 8 stories to his death. Seems it wasn't his dog. Around our house, I'm known as Icebox Man. One of my duties is to keep people from standing too long with the door of the icebox open while they decide what to eat. You know, someone smokes 3 joints and decides to inventory the refrigerator. Drives me crazy. Close the fucking door, will you? You're letting out all the cold. Look, here's $20. Go down to Burger King, why don't you? I'll save that much on electricity. Close the goddamn door. If you can't decide what you want, take a Polaroid picture. Go figure it out, come back later. You kids are lucky. We didn't have Polaroids. We had to make an oil painting. I try not to let them get me down, though, 'cause Icebox Man has an even bigger job. Picking through the refrigerator periodically, deciding which items to throw away. Most people won't take that responsibility. You know, they grab what they want and they leave the rest. They figure someone is saving that. Sooner or later it'll be eaten. Meanwhile, the thing, whatever it is growing smaller and denser and has become permanently fused to the refrigerator shelf. Well, folks, Icebox Man is willing to make the tough decisions. And I never act alone. I always include the family. I noticed some egg salad here that's been in the icebox for a while. Are we engaged in medical research I haven't been told about? May I assume from the color of this meatloaf that it's being saved for St. Patrick's Day? Someone call a museum and have this onion dip carbon dated. And how about this multicolored Jell-O from Christmas? It's July now. If no one wants this, I'm going to throw it away. Did your mother ever pull that stuff on you? Offer you some food that if you didn't eat it, she was going to just throw it away? Well, doesn't that make you feel dandy? Here's something to eat, Petey. Hurry up, it's spoiling. Bobby, eat this quickly. The green part is spreading. If you don't eat it, I'm going to give it to the dog. It's so nice to be ahead of the dog in the food chain. Icebox Man has had some interesting experiences. Have you ever been looking through the refrigerator and you come across a completely empty plate? Nothing on it but a couple of food stains? It's unnerving, isn't it? I think to myself, could something have eaten something else? Maybe the Spam ate the olives. Maybe that half-eaten chicken isn't really dead. He's living on our food. Sometimes I picture a little mouse in a parka, hiding behind the mustard, waiting for the refrigerator light to go off, so he can resume his cold weather foraging. Probably the worst experience is reaching into the refrigerator and finding something you simply cannot identify at all. You literally do not know what it is. It could be meat. It could be cake. At times like these, I try to bluff. "Honey, is this good?" "What is it?" "I don't know. I've never seen anything like it. It looks like meat cake." "Smell it." "It has no smell whatsoever." "It's good. Put it back. Someone is saving it for something." That's what frightens me, that someone will consider it a challenge and use it in soup, simply because it's there. It's a leftover. What a sad word, leftover. But think about this. Leftovers make you feel good twice. First, when you put them away, you feel thrifty and intelligent. I'm saving food. Then a month later, when blue hair is growing out of the ham and you throw it away, you feel really intelligent. I'm saving my life. There are many expressions that we just take for granted. We use them all the time, yet we never examine them carefully. We just say them as if they really made sense. Like, legally drunk. Well, if it's legal, what's the fucking problem? "Leave me alone, officer. I'm legally drunk." You know where you can stick it. Well, why do we always assume everyone knows where they can stick it? Suppose you don't know. Suppose you're a new guy and you have absolutely no idea where you can stick it. I think there ought to be a government booklet entitled Where to Stick It. Now that I think of it, I believe there is a government booklet like that. They send it to you on April 15th. Undisputed heavyweight champion. Well, if it's undisputed, what's all the fighting about? To me, undisputed means we all agree. Here you have two men beating the shit out of one another over something they apparently agree on. Makes no sense. Here's another one. It's the quiet ones you gotta watch. Every time I see a news story about a mass murderer, the guy's neighbor is always saying, "Well, he was very quiet." And someone I'm sitting with says, "It's the quiet ones you gotta watch." This sounds like a very dangerous assumption. I'll bet you anything that while you're busy watching a quiet one, a noisy one will fucking kill you. Suppose you're in a bar and one guy is sitting over on the side reading a book, not bothering anybody, and another guy is standing up at the front banging a machete on the bar screaming, "I'm gonna kill the next motherfucker who pisses me off." Who are you gonna watch? Lock 'em up and throw away the key. This is one you hear a lot from men. Men like to talk that way. Makes them feel tough. Guy sees a rapist on the TV news. He says, "You see that guy? They ought to lock him up and throw away the key." This is really stupid. First of all, every time the guy's got to take a shit, you're going to have to call a locksmith. If he's in prison 30 years, even if he's eating government cheese, it's going to cost you a fortune. Second, where do you throw the key? Right out in front of the jail? His friends will find it. How far can you throw a key? 50, 60 feet the most. Even if you hold it flat on its side and scale it, what do you get? An extra 10 feet tops. This is a stupid idea that needs to be completely rethought. Down the tubes. That's one you hear a lot, People say, the country is going down the tubes. What tubes? Have you seen any tubes? Where are these tubes? And where do they go? And how come there's more than one tube? It would seem to me, one country, one tube. What, does every state all of a sudden have to have its own tube now? One tube is all you need. But a tube that big, somebody would have seen it by now. Somebody would have said, "Hey, Joey, look at the fucking tube. Big-ass fucking tube over here." You never hear that. You know why? No tubes. We don't have tube one. We are, sorry to say, tubeless. Takes the cake. Boy, he really takes the cake. Where? Where do you take a cake? To the movies? You know where I would take a cake? Down to the bakery to see the other cakes. And how come he takes the cake? How come he don't take the pie? A pie is easier to carry than a cake. Easy as pie. A cake is not too hard to carry either. Piece of cake. The greatest thing since sliced bread. So this is it? A couple of 100,000 years? Sliced bread? What about the pyramids, the Panama Canal, the Great Wall of China? Even a lava lamp, to me, is greater than sliced bread. What's so great about sliced bread? You got a knife, you got a loaf of bread, slice the fucking thing, and get on with your life. Out walking the streets. There's another one you hear from men. Some guy sees a rapist on the news. Same rapist as before, only this time he's being released. Guy says, you see that? You see that guy? They're letting that guy go. Now, instead of being in prison, he's out walking the streets. How do we know? How do we know he's out walking the streets? Maybe he's home banging the babysitter. Not everyone gets a parole is out walking the fucking streets. A lot of times they steal a car. We ought to be glad. Thank God he stole a car. At least he's not out walking the streets. Fine and dandy. That's an old-fashioned one, isn't it? Yeah. You say to a guy, how are you? He says, fine and dandy. Not me. I never say that. You know why? Because I'm never both of those things at the same time. Sometimes I'm fine, not dandy. Close to dandy, approaching dandy. In the vicinity of dandyhood, not quite fully dandy. Other times I might be indeed highly dandy. However, not fine. One time, 1978, August, for about an hour, I was both fine and dandy at the same time. But nobody asked me how I was. I could have told them, fine and dandy. I consider it a lost opportunity. Walking papers. Some guy gets fired. They say, well, they give him his walking papers today. Let me ask you something. Did you ever get any walking papers? Seriously? Believe me, in my life, I got fired a lot of times. Never got any walking papers. Never got a pink slip either. You know what I would get? A guy would come around to my desk and say, get the fuck out of here! You don't need paper for that. The Riot Act. They keep saying they're going to read that to you. Tell the truth. Have you ever heard this thing at all, this Riot Act, ever? It's a bigger problem when you're a kid. They like to threaten you with that. You wait till your father comes home. He's going to read you the Riot Act. Oh, yeah? Well, tell him I already read it myself, and I didn't like it either. I consider it wordy and poorly thought out. If he wants to read me something, how about the Gentleman's Guide to the Golden Age of Tongue Kissing? More than happy. I bet you say that sometimes, don't you? I bet you say, oh, I'd be more than happy to do that. How can you be more than happy? To me, this sounds like a dangerous mental condition. We had to put Laszlo under physical restraint. He was more than happy. One more of these expressions, in your own words. You hear that in classrooms a lot, or courtrooms. They'll say, tell us in your own words. Do you have your own words? Personally, I'm using the ones everybody else has been using. Next time they tell you to say something in your own words, say, Nick flat blorny quando floon. Dogs come in all sizes. There are a lot of little dogs, and there are a lot of big dogs. And when I say big dogs, I don't mean just big dogs. I mean big, fucking huge goddamn dogs. Some people have dogs that look more like livestock. Dogs that ought to be wearing commercial license plates. What the hell is that? That's my dog. Jesus, man, he blocked out the sun. That's Tiny. He's a great Alaskan horse moose dog. Say hello, Tiny. No, Tiny. Put the man down. Put him down. Bad dog. Little dogs are different. Little dogs jump all around and their legs move real quick. They got those teeny little legs. They got legs that if you feel around under the fur, it's like a pepperoni stick under there. Sometimes they jump up high. Some of them can jump clear up onto a real high bed. Boom! Holy shit, what a jump. Let me see you do that again. And then I put them back on the floor. Boing! God, I can't believe it. Come on, one more time. Back onto the floor. Boing! And I make him keep doing it, and doing it, and doing it over and over until he gets all tired out and can't quite reach the bed anymore. Then I let him fall short a few times and crash back onto the floor. Then, and only then, if I decide I want him on the bed, I put him up there myself. It's my decision. I buy the dog food. Besides, if you do allow him on the bed, sooner or later he'll create an incident. Before the evening is over, he will force one of the humans to turn to the other and say, "Honey, did you fart?" "Not me. I thought you farted." "Not me. That's not even one of my farts. I told you I've got 4 farts. My Heineken's fart, my broccoli fart, my rice pudding fart, and my non-dairy creamer fart. And the fart I'm smelling right now is definitely not one of mine." Wait a minute, I know. The dog farted. Fleeky farted. Fleeky, why did you fart? Look at him. Look how guilty he looks. He knows he farted. I seen his asshole open up. I seen it. Huh? Well, I just happened to be looking at his asshole by chance, that's all. What kind of a question is that? I was simply glancing at his asshole, and I saw it open up. I thought he was doing some kind of deep breathing exercise. I had no idea he was into chemical warfare. Have you noticed that most people who are against abortion are people you wouldn't want to fuck in the first place? Conservatives are physically unattractive and morally inconsistent. They're obsessed with fetuses from conception to 9 months, but after that they have no interest in you. None. No daycare, no Head Start, no school lunch, no food stamps, no welfare, no nothing. If you're preborn, you're fine. If you're preschool, you're fucked. Once you leave the womb, conservatives don't care about you until you reach military age. Then you're just what they're looking for. Conservatives want live babies so they can raise them to be dead soldiers. Pro-life. How can they be pro-life when they're killing doctors? What sort of moral philosophy is that? We'll do anything to save a fetus, but we might have to kill it later on if it grows up to be a doctor. They're not pro-life. They're anti-woman. Simple. They're afraid of women and they don't like them. They believe a woman's primary role is to function as a broodmare for the state. If they think a fetus is more important than a woman, they should try getting a fetus to wash the shit stains out of their underwear. For no pay. Pro-life. You don't see many white anti-abortion women volunteering to have black fetuses transplanted into their uteruses, do you? No. You don't see them adopting any crack babies, do you? No. That's something Jesus would do. And you won't see many pro-lifers dousing themselves with kerosene and lighting themselves on fire. Remember the Buddhist monks in Vietnam? Morally committed religious people in Southeast Asia knew how to stage a protest. Light yourself on fire. Come on, you Christian crusaders. Let's see a little smoke. Let's see if you can match that fire in your bellies. Separate thought here. Why is it when it's a human being it's called an abortion, and when it's a chicken it's called an omelet? Are we so much better than chickens? When did that happen? Name 6 ways we're better than chickens. See? No one can do it. You know why? 'Cause chickens are decent people. You don't see chickens hanging around in drug gangs, do you? No. You don't see chickens strapping someone to a chair and hooking up their nuts to a car battery. Huh? No. And when's the last time you heard about a chicken who came home from work and beat the shit out of his hen? Huh? Doesn't happen. You know why? 'Cause chickens are decent people. Back to abortion. The central question seems to be, are fetuses human beings? Well, if fetuses are human beings, why aren't they counted by the census? If fetuses are human beings, why is it there's no funeral following a miscarriage? If fetuses are human beings, why do people say, we have 2 children and 1 on the way, instead of saying, we have 3 children? Some people say life begins at conception. I say life began 1 billion years ago and it's a continuous process. And actually it goes back farther than that. What about the carbon atoms? Human life could not exist without carbon. So is it possible that maybe we shouldn't be burning all this coal? I don't mean to be picky here. I'm just looking for a little consistency. The hardcore pro-lifers tell us that life begins at fertilization when the sperm fertilizes the egg, which usually occurs a few minutes after the man says, Sorry, honey, I was going to pull out, but the phone rang and it startled me. But even after fertilization, it's still 6 or 7 days before the egg reaches the uterus and pregnancy begins. And not every egg makes it. 80% of a woman's fertilized eggs are rinsed out of her body once a month during those delightful few days she has. They end up on sanitary napkins, and yet they are fertilized eggs. So what these anti-abortion people are actually telling us is that any woman who's had more than one period is a serial killer. I don't mean to be picky here. I'm just looking for a little consistency. And speaking of consistency, Catholics, which I was until I reached the age of reason, Catholics and other Christians are against abortions, and they're against homosexuals. Well, who has less abortions than homosexuals? Here's an entire class of citizens guaranteed never to have an abortion, and the Catholics and Christians are just tossing them aside. You'd think they'd be natural allies. And regarding the Catholics, when I hear that the Pope and some of his holy friends have experienced their first pregnancies and labor pains and raised a couple of children on minimum wage, I'll be glad to hear what they have to say about abortion. In the meantime, what they ought to do is tell these priests who took a vow of chastity to keep their hands off the altar boys. When Jesus said, "Suffer the little children come unto me," pedophilia is not what he was talking about. He had something else in mind. One phrase that comes up quite a bit in abortion discussions is sanctity of life. What about that? Do you think there's such a thing as sanctity of life? Personally, I think it's a bunch of shit. Who says life is sacred? God? Great. But if you read your history, you know that God is one of the leading causes of death, and has been for thousands of years. Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Jews, all taking turns killing one another because God told them it was a good idea. The sword of God, the blood of the Lamb, vengeance is mine. Millions of dead people, all because they gave the wrong answer to the God question. Do you believe in God? No. Bam! Dead. How about you? Do you believe in God? Yes. Do you believe in my God? No. Bam! Dead. My God has a bigger dick than your God. For thousands of years, all the bloodiest and most brutal wars have been based on religious hatred, which of course is fine with me. Anytime holy people are killing one another, I'm a happy guy. But please, don't kill each other and then give me that shit about sanctity of life. Even if there were such an absurd thing, I don't think you can blame it on God. You know where the sanctity of life comes from? We made it up. You know why? Because we're alive. Self-interest. Living people have a strong incentive to promote the idea that somehow life is sacred. You don't see Bing Crosby running around talking about this shit, do you? You don't hear much from Mussolini on the subject. And what's the latest from JFK? Not a goddamn thing. You know why? Because JFK, Mussolini, and Bing Crosby are all fucking dead. They're fucking dead, and dead people give less than a shit about the sanctity of life. The only people who care about it are the living. So the whole thing grows out of a biased point of view. It's a self-serving, man-made bullshit story. One of those things we tell ourselves in order to feel noble. Life is sacred. Makes us feel good. But let me ask you this. If everything that ever lived is dead, and everything alive is going to die, where does the sacred part come in? Can you help me on that? Because even with all we preach about the sanctity of life, we don't practice it. Look at what we kill. Mosquitoes and flies because they're pests. Lions and tigers because it's fun. Chickens and pigs because we're hungry. And people. We kill people because they're pests. And because it's fun. And here's something else I noticed. Apparently the sanctity of life doesn't apply to cancer cells, does it? You rarely see a bumper sticker that says, "Save the tumors," or "I break for advanced melanoma." No. Viruses, molds, mildew, maggots, fungus, weed, intestinal worms, E. coli, the crabs, nothing sacred about those things. Just us. So at best, the sanctity of life is a selective thing. We choose which forms of life we feel are sacred, and we get to kill the rest. Pretty neat deal. You know how we got it? We made the whole thing up. Same way we made up the death penalty. The sanctity of life and the death penalty. We're such a versatile species. People often say, "That's a fine how do you do," when deep in their hearts they know it's really only a fairly good how do you do. There's actually such a thing as disposable douche, and I wonder, why would you want to keep it in the first place? When I was a little boy, I used to read about the decline of Western civilization, and I decided it was something I'd like to make a contribution to. Have you noticed when you look in the top drawer of someone else's desk, there are always a few pennies in the pencil tray? I take them. In a package of bacon, underneath the neat horizontal strips, there's always one oddly folded piece that seems to have been thrown in at the last minute. You rarely see one oat all by itself. The best thing about living at the seashore is that you only have assholes on 3 sides of you, and if they come at you from the water, you can hear them splash. Although it's untrue that rubbing a toad causes warts, it does give the toad a hard-on. We'll never be an advanced civilization as long as rain showers can delay the launching of a space rocket. I never worry that all hell will break loose. My concern is that only part of hell will break loose and be a lot harder to detect. What is all this dinner and a movie shit? Why can't people just go somewhere and fuck for 3 or 4 hours? In a restaurant where they serve frog's legs, what do they do with the rest of the frog? Do they just throw it away? You never see frog torsos on the menu. Is there actually a garbage can full of frog bodies in the alley? I wouldn't want to be a homeless guy looking for an unfinished cheeseburger and open the lid on that. Boy, I hope no one asks me to show them the ropes. I have no idea where they are. Maybe I could pull some strings and find out. If you practice throwing the discus alone, you have to go get it yourself. You know what's a lot of fun? Go in the hospital room of a terminal patient and whisper to him, "Hang on, we're working on a miracle drug. It'll be ready in about 5 years." One thing nice about being dead is that you immediately become eligible to appear on stamps and money. Cats thought, "I sure could do with a nice rat." Oxen can be trained to genuflect and whistle softly in the moonlight. Have you ever noticed that the escalator handrail and the part you're standing on don't move at the same speed? You know what you rarely see? A 93-year-old guy working on his resume. I don't mind government regulation, but requiring people to wear helmets during intercourse is a bit much. Who does a male ladybug dance with? Did you ever notice that apparently the Lone Ranger and Tonto never got their laundry done? Believe it or not, someone has actually gone to the trouble of determining that Columbus, Ohio has the best-dressed police force. This is a sign of having very little to do. You know how you get rid of counterfeit money? Put it in the collection plate at church. They don't care. They give it to blind people. I don't understand the problem some people have with paroling Charles Manson. I say let him loose and let him get on with his work. I have a long list of celebrities I'd be glad to share with him. When people say clean as a whistle, they forget that a whistle is full of spit. Airlines disappoint me. Why can't they have a flight attendant whose job it is to hand out drugs? They're certainly aggressive enough when it comes to alcohol. Even before the meal begins, they're in the aisles. Champagne, red wine, white wine. Can't they spare one person to wander around muttering coke, smoke, chance to get high, crank, acid, smack? You're high in the plane, now get high on the plane. For me, on a long flight, it used to be that getting high was half the fun. Hell, even a short flight, locking myself in the bathroom, firing up a joint. That's what flying was all about. Now you can't smoke anything at all, not even a good old-fashioned ready roll. They have smoke detectors. Jesus, the people in this country have really become a pack of fearful, ignorant sheep. Everybody's a God-fearing, law-abiding asshole now. Fair warning, my friend. If you're going to smoke a joint on the airplane these days, you better be an old pro. In the old days, I always did my pot smoking in the forward lavatory because I fantasized that the mirror was two-way and the crew could see me. I can't help it, I just like an audience, you know. But I knew my manners. I always offered the crew a hit or two. I'd make little gestures with the joint toward the mirror. Come on, boys, lighten up. Life isn't all azimuth indicators. Never any takers. Real straight folks up there. Now, I'm sure all of you high-minded, non-chance takers out there are thinking, what about the smell? Doesn't the bathroom fill up with pot smoke? Well, folks, this is where a little background in physics comes in handy. Follow me closely on this. Before the airlines introduced these fancy new toilets, the ones that tear your genitals off when they flush, the old toilets, in order to control odors, had a slow, steady stream of air that flowed from the lavatory itself down into the bowl, and you could increase the speed of that airflow by simply sitting on the toilet, thereby reducing the size of the air passage down to that little wedge-shaped space between your thighs. Narrower channel, stronger flow, and your cheeks acted as a gasket, sealing off the rest of the opening. Then, if you carefully pointed a lit cigarette down into the toilet between your thighs, by the way, I cannot overemphasize the importance of the word carefully in the above sentence. Of course, not all planes had equally strong airflow, so a system test was always in order. A good physicist never proceeds without checking conditions. In this case, we use a common match. A lit match, quickly extinguished, produces a small visible wisp of smoke. If the match is held deep in the bowl, one can observe whether that smoke is sucked straight downward or rises gently back into the lavatory. In the former case, all systems are go. In the latter case, the no smoking sign is wisely observed. Unless, of course, we decide to go to Plan B. One must always have a backup. And so we turn our attention to the sink. The sink is a magnificent device. It fills with water, holds it a while, and then when the drain is released, it empties. And on an airplane, when it empties, it is helped along by what? Why, it's helped along by our old friend, Mr. Air Pressure. And what do you know, just by pressing down on the drain release plunger, we can produce an even stronger flow of air than we can with the toilet because the sink drain is so much smaller. A quick test with a lit match confirms this. But remember, the drain release lever is spring-loaded, and therefore if the airflow is to remain constant, the plunger must remain depressed and open during the entire period the joint is lit. And that means we have to prop the drain cap open by wedging some object underneath it. A matchbook cover, or perhaps one of those little bars of soap the airlines used to leave near the sink. Isn't science fun? All right, gang, we're almost ready to light up and get wasted, but there is still one further consideration. If you're going to smoke a joint while seated on the toilet, as opposed to standing up leaning down into the sink, at some point you have to decide whether or not you should pretend to be taking a shit. In other words, whether or not to pull your pants down. If you really have to take a shit at the time, that's great. You're all set. But if you don't, you have a decision to make. Because although ethically there's nothing wrong with taking a fake shit, in a practical sense, if the crew thinks you've been in there too long and they decide to break down the door, you want to be sure that when they arrive, you appear to be taking a genuine shit. Don't forget, they're going to check. And nobody wants to be arrested for shitting with his pants on. Am I right? Although personally, I can tell you I don't care what the charge is as long as I get rid of the joint. Besides, shitting with your pants on is only a misdemeanor, and in my case, it would be a first offense. Which brings us back to my own personal airline bathroom experience. One problem I always had was that after I got high, I would wind up staying in the bathroom way too long. Pot brought out the super-organizer in me, so once I'd had a few good deep hits and was securely locked in, I tended to go to work. First thing I did was open up all those little compartments under the sink and rearrange the supplies stored inside. I'd restack all the sanitary napkins according to strength, regular, super, jumbo, teeny bopper, I'd remove the outer wrappers from the spare toilet paper, making it readily available in the event some nasty bacterium found its way into the first-class entrees. And then I'd refill the paper towel dispenser, being careful to pack it so tightly that the towels would not come out without shredding. And, again, the old days, I'd make sure there were plenty of those little bars of soap lying out for people to steal. In the occasional instance when cologne, aftershave, and other amenities were made available, I would be sure to take them home for further quality control testing. Ford is not the only place where quality is job one. Then, my chores done, I would relax somewhat and reflect on the environment around me. I'd become fascinated by the little slot they had for used razor blades, and I wondered whether or not the blades actually dropped out of the airplane and fell on people's houses, or if they just rusted and rotted somewhere behind the wall. I'd read the various signs posted in 3 languages and try to translate precisely the corresponding words in each language. Then, finally, a long, lingering look in the mirror, usually resulting in the discovery of some hideous facial flaw previously undetected. And then, suddenly, the little lighted sign would flash on, telling me to return to cabin. Return to cabin. Return to cabin. I'd think, oh shit, trouble in the cabin. They need me. I should never have left them alone. I'd better see what's up. And then on my way out, I'd spot one last sign. Please leave lavatory clean for the next passenger. Well, that's all I needed to hear. And because I'm really into detail now, and even though I didn't make a mess of my own, I'm experiencing felon's guilt. And I decide to clean up for the next person. I rinse and dry and thoroughly polish the entire sink area, scouring all the burst pimple residue off the mirror, and I even wash off the dried gray dirt bubbles left on the soap by the previous person. Now I'm really getting into it. Pretty soon I find myself washing the walls and ceiling, throwing open the door and yelling, "You people got some spick and span and a hard bristle brush out there? I think I can get these blue stains off the toilet." And suddenly I realize my fantasy world has collapsed. The real world is watching. Adjusting quickly and relying on my identity as a comedian, I chuckle weakly and say, "Well, you gotta clean up for the next person." Then, as the fat woman waiting to take a shit passes me on her way into the john, I hiss at her, "Don't fuck it up, lady. I worked my ass off in there." And back to my seat I go, secure in the knowledge that once again, thanks to my highly developed work ethic, along with some great Humboldt weed, I've managed to make the skies a little friendlier. The 20th Century World Hostility Scoreboard. The following is a list of hostilities that took place in the 20th century among the civilized peoples of the world. The uncivilized were unable to provide reliable statistics. 2 world wars, 250 civil wars, 311 holy wars, 1 Cold War, 516 wars of liberation, 331 wars of containment, 691 wars of honor, 296 declared wars, 856 undeclared wars, 4 brushfire wars, 2 vest pocket wars, 413 limited wars, 1,987 acts of war, 7,756 warlike acts, 88 police actions, 2 nuclear attacks, 6,578 government massacres, 4 holocausts, 943 jihads, 693 pogroms, 614 long-term persecutions, 12,111 acts of treachery, 575 betrayals of the masses, 958 grabs for power, 400 putsches, 50 total enslavements, 837 partial enslavements, 4 total genocides, 461 partial genocides, 13,658 ceasefire violations, 3,115 boundary disputes, 1,432 border clashes, 3,047 social conflicts, 798 sectarian rivalries, 13,678 civil disturbances, 946 carpet bombings, 4,288 threats to security, 286 popular uprisings, 1,877 areas of unrest, 622 strife-torn regions, 165 internal upheavals, 745 political repressions, 12,194 acts of sabotage, 1,633 swift reprisals, 818 armed resistances, 639 repressive measures, 1,126 violent outbursts, 9,876 mass detentions, 11,904 guerrilla operations, 3,466 suicide missions, 823 slaughters, 1,200 bloodbaths, 43,096 atrocities, 106 reigns of terror, 715 rebellions, 28 revolutions, 21 counter-revolutions, 746 coups, 745 counter-coups, 457 insurgencies, 458 counterinsurgencies, 4,622 covert operations, 3,422 direct interventions, 617 enemy incursions, 13 measured responses, 295 commando strikes, 694 retaliatory raids, 844 surprise attacks, 236 protective reactions, 2,155 frontal assaults, 213 responses in kind, 17,876 hostile incidents, 4,756 belligerent moves, 938 naked aggressions, 849 foreign adventures, 601 overseas entanglements, 307 arms races, 98 international powder kegs, 515 regional tinderboxes, 818 military flashpoints, 2,415 heated exchanges, 911 shows of force, 668 heightenings of tension, 735 deliberate provocations, 921 military confrontations, 639 dangerous escalations, 3,721 terrorist bombings, 438 preemptive strikes, 630 outside aggressions, 8,571 violent disturbances, 646 surgical strikes, 4,392 diplomatic deadlocks, 82,879 ultimatums, 788,969,747 heated arguments, 823,275,571 shoving matches, 917,704,296 fistfights, 942,759,050 snotty phone calls. That's how we did, folks. All in all, not a bad record, considering the number of fools in our ranks. I remember when they tried to teach me to tell time as a little boy. What they didn't know, of course, was that you don't tell time. Time tells you. Still, they tried. Now, George, the big hand is on. I don't have a big hand. Both my hands are little. Never mind, just look at the clock. And I did. And it was wonderful. I love the face of a clock. To me, there is great emotion attached to the face of a clock, a conventional analog clock. Digital clocks are all right in their place, I suppose, but they lack the friendly spatial relationships that exist between the hands and the numerals on an analog clock. There's a psychological component. To me, the first half of any hour, as the minute hand falls from 12 to 6, passes a lot more quickly than the second half, when it has to struggle upward, fighting gravity all the way. I'll say this much. If I only had half an hour to live, I'd want it to be the second half. I just know it would last a little longer. Life is full of little moments that we never seem to mention to each other. Do you ever look at your watch and immediately forget the time, so you have to look again? And still it doesn't register, so you have to look a third time? And then someone asks you what time it is, and you actually have to look at your watch for the fourth time in 3 minutes? Don't you feel stupid? Do you ever find yourself standing in a room and you can't remember why you went in there? And you think to yourself, maybe if I go back where I was, I'll see something that reminds me of it. Or maybe it would be quicker if I just stand here and hope it comes back to me. Usually, as you're weighing those two options, 2 words float across your mind. Alzheimer's disease. Do you ever have to sneeze while taking a piss? It's frightening, isn't it? Deep down, you're afraid you'll release all sorts of bodily fluids into your pants. What people don't realize is that it's physically impossible to sneeze while pissing. Your brain won't allow it. Because your brain knows you might blow your asshole out and wind up having to repaint the entire apartment. Have you ever noticed how sometimes all day Wednesday you keep thinking it's Thursday? Then the next day when you're back to normal, you wonder why you don't think it's Friday. Have you ever been sitting on a railroad train in the station, and another train is parked right next to you, and one of them begins moving, but you can't tell which one, and then it becomes obvious? and all the magic is gone. Wouldn't it be nice if we could spend our whole lives not knowing which train is moving? Actually, we do. Do you ever fall asleep in the late afternoon and wake up after dark, and you can't figure out which day it is? You actually find yourself thinking, could this be yesterday? You ever try to tell someone they have a little bit of dirt on their face? They never rub the right spot, do they? They always assume the mirror image and they rub the wrong side. Don't you just want to slap the bastard? Have you noticed that when your head is on the pillow, if you close one eye, the pillow is in one position, but when you switch eyes, the pillow seems to move? Sometimes I lie awake for hours doing that. You ever reach the top of a staircase and you think there's one more step? So you take one of those big awkward steps that doesn't accomplish anything, and then you have to do it a few more times so people will think it's something you do all the time? I do this all the time, folks. It's the third stage of syphilis. When they show a dog on TV, do you try to get your dog to look at him? Don't you want your dog to see the dog on TV? I do. Look at the doggy. Look at the dog. Over there, on TV. Look. They don't look. They won't look. Even if you try to twist their head around and point it toward the TV, he ain't gonna look. Over there. Turn your head. Look, on TV. Look at the dog. God damn it, you asshole. Look at the fucking dog. They never look where you want. If you point at something, they just stare at your hand. You try to show them something interesting, they think you're showing them your hand. There he goes again, showing me his hand. Why does he do that? I guess he's really proud of it. Uh-oh, now he's twisting my head around. Oh, Jesus, what did I do now? Well, for one thing, you completely missed the dog on TV. I don't have nice days anymore. I don't bother with that. I'm beyond the nice day. I feel I've outgrown the whole idea. Besides, I've already had my share of nice days. Why should I be hogging them all? Let someone else have a few. Naturally, everyone still wants me to have one. Every person I meet wants me to have a nice day. Especially clerks. Have a nice day. Yeah. You want to give me my fucking change, please? I'm triple parked. Some of them are really insistent. I said have a nice day. Do it. All right. I'll give it a shot. That's the trouble with have a nice day. It puts all the pressure on you. Now you have to go out and somehow arrange to have a positive experience, all because of some loose-lipped clerk. Have a nice day indeed. Maybe I don't feel like having a nice day. Maybe, just maybe, I've had 27 nice days in a row and I'm ready for a crappy day. You never hear that, do you? Have a crappy day. Why, thank you. Right back at you, and to your wonderful family as well. Crappy day. That would be easy, wouldn't it? No trouble at all. No planning involved. Just get out of bed and start moving around. I think what bothers me the most about the whole nice day thing is that word nice. It's a weak word. Doesn't have a lot of character. Nice. Isn't he nice? He is so nice. And she's nice, too. Isn't that nice? How nice they are. I don't care for that. It's like fine. Another weak word. How are you? Fine? Bullshit. Nobody's fine. Hair is fine. How's your hair? Fine. That makes more sense to me. Some guys are great. You ever meet those guys? This is great. Isn't this great? God damn, this is great. Look, they're going to kill that guy. Isn't that great? Not me. I'm not nice, I'm not fine, I'm not great. People ask me how I am. I don't give them any superlatives, nothing to gossip about. I tell them I'm fairly decent, or relatively okay. I might say I'm moderately neato. And if I'm in a particularly jaunty mood, I'll tell them, I'm not unwell, thank you. That one always pisses them off, because they have to figure that one out for themselves. When I think of the rain dance the American Indians used to do, I often wonder if they had to practice first. Wouldn't you want to have rain dance practice just to go over things again? To make sure everyone was doing the correct steps in the correct order? Maybe there were some new guys. Maybe the dance master had some new things he wanted to try out. There are all sorts of reasons why the Indians might want to play it safe and practice first. My question is, if they did hold practice and the rain didn't come, how would they know they had done it right? If the dance is done correctly, shouldn't it rain? Or did the Indians figure the rain god knew it was only practice and he was waiting for the real thing? Then again, if it did rain right after practice, why not just cancel the dance and figure the next time you need rain, all you have to do is practice? These are the kind of thoughts that made it necessary to separate me from the other kids in school. You don't hear much of that elevator music anymore, do you? What's going on? I'll bet there were a lot of singers with great voices who never got famous because they were too ugly to stand up and be seen in public. Why do women wear evening gowns to nightclubs? Why don't they wear nightgowns? I think many years ago an advanced civilization intervened with us genetically and gave us just enough intelligence to develop dangerous technology, but not enough intelligence to use it wisely. Then they sat back to watch the fun, kind of like a human zoo. And you know what? They're getting their money's worth. After you die, your stuff becomes your personal effects. I think people should be allowed to do anything they want. We haven't tried this for a while. Maybe this time it'll work. People ask me if I have an email address, and I say www.fuckyou.com at blowme/up-your-ass. And they seem to understand. Capitalism tries for a delicate balance. It attempts to work things out so that everyone gets just enough stuff to keep them from getting violent and trying to take other people's stuff. Baseball bats are now the preferred weapon for many drug gangs and others who have a business need to administer behavioral reminders. They're cheap, they're lethal, legal, untraceable, and hey, it's the national pastime. Dying must have survival value, or else it wouldn't be part of the biological process. Why is it that when making reference to something in the past, people often think they have to say, I hope I'm not dating myself? Listen, if you're so embarrassed by your age, there's a simple solution. Open a vein. I don't have hobbies. I have interests. Hobbies cost money. Interests are free. With all the presidential administrations we've had, I'm sure that by now, there must have been at least one secretary of something or other who, besides being in the cabinet, was also in the closet. I don't like it when I'm in an audience and the MC tells us to give someone a welcome specific to that city. Let's all get together and give this little lady a nice Toledo welcome. I've often thought if I were from Toledo, it would be fun now and then to give someone a nice Baltimore welcome, just to break the MC's balls. Or maybe slip in an exotic Budapest welcome when no one's expecting it. One thing I would never do is give someone a Dallas welcome. That's what JFK got. Dallas welcomes don't last that long. You rarely see an elderly midget. Apparently, their lifespans are shorter too. You keep hearing that society's greatest tasks are educating people and getting them jobs. That's great. Two things people hate to do: go to school and go to work. You know, we busy ourselves with these meaningless gestures such as Take Our Daughters to Work Day, which applies primarily to white middle-class daughters. More help for the wrong people. Some people seem to think that if there's a problem in the country that makes them unhappy, all they have to do is stage a big march and everything will change. When are they going to learn? I don't know about you, but I really have no problem with atrocities. What's the big deal? Lighten up. Can placebos cause side effects? And if so, are the side effects real? When hundreds of people are killed in an airplane crash, I always wonder if maybe there wasn't one guy who was a little behind schedule that day, and he had to run down the last few hundred yards of the airport concourse to make the plane on time. And when he finally sat down in his seat, all out of breath, he was really glad he made it. And then an hour later, the plane goes down. What goes through his mind? Do you think maybe in those last few moments as he plunges to the earth he wishes he'd had a heart attack running through the airport? Why do they bother with a suicide watch when someone is on death row? Keep an eye on this guy. We're going to kill him, and we don't want him to hurt himself first. I notice at Jewish weddings they break a glass. You ever been to an Irish wedding? Glasses, bottles, mirrors, tables, chairs, arms, legs, the band instruments, and the groom's neck. We don't fuck around. Mazel tov. I recently attended an avant-garde play. It was called An Anteater, a Tire Iron, and a Blue Hat by Zal Fenchley. Here's what it said in the program. Act 1, Scene 1. Laura's living room several weeks later. Scene 2. Easter, aboard a Turkish woman's thigh. Scene 3. Deep within the colon of a woolly mammoth, 16,376 B.C. Scene 4. Inside a sailor's shorts during the attack on Pearl Harbor. Act 2, Scene 1. On a French sidewalk, 6 feet from some escargot vomit. Scene 2. Inside a condom in Haifa, Jewish New Year. Scene 3. At your aunt's house. Soon. Act 3, Scene 1. In a Shriner's hat band, following oral sex. Scene 2. Down where Arturo used to live, not that long ago. Act 4, Scene 1. John Lennon sings 2 songs. Not tonight. I love my dog. I love all my dogs. Every dog I ever had, I still love 'em. And in my life, believe me, I have had me a bunch of goddamn dogs. 'Cause you keep on getting a new one, don't you? It's true. As life goes on, you keep getting one new dog after another. That's the whole secret of life. Life is a series of dogs. Sometimes you can get a dog that looks exactly like the one you had before. It's true. If you shop around a little, you can find a dog identical to your former dog. You just bring the dead one into the pet shop, throw him up on the counter and say, "Give me another one of these." And by God, they'll give you a carbon copy of your ex-goddamn dog. And that's real handy, 'cause then you don't have to go around the house changing all the pictures. That's the nice thing about dogs. They don't live too long, and you can go and get a new one. Most people know the best-sized dog to have is a knee-high, mid-sized dog. It's the ideal pet because whenever some nice lady comes to visit you, the first thing that dog does is put his nose right in her crotch. "Hi, Mrs. Effington." "Hi, Stuart, how's the—" "Ooh, what a friendly dog. Ooh, I'll bet he smells my dog." "I'm not sure, Mrs. Effington. Judging by where he's putting his nose, I'd say he's got a completely different animal in mind." "You don't by any chance own a pussy, do you?" "No, no." Some people get embarrassed, by that nose-crotch behavior. The dog owner will often fall all over himself trying to save face. "Stop that, Bongo. Stop it. I'm awfully sorry, Marzell. He's usually so polite. You must have not bathed." Not me, folks. I never apologize. I'm a fun-loving guy. I say, "Get in there, Bongo. Get yourself some of that. Sniff it out. Listen, Marzell, would you mind spreading your legs a little bit so he can get some sniffing room? Plant your feet about 3 feet apart, would you? That's it. Good. Air that thing out. Okay. So how's everything going down at the church? Good. All right, Bongo, now go around the back and sniff that other thing. Sorry, Marzell, there's 2 smells he likes, and one of 'em's in the back." "What's that? You gotta go? Well, I'm awfully sorry. Listen, before you go, you wouldn't be willing to let Bongo have about 30 seconds on your leg, would you?" "Nah, I didn't think so." "Okay, no problem. You take care and tell the Reverend Bongo says hello." Those dogs are really great. They help break the ice when a new neighbor comes to call. "Hi, we're the Belchingtons. Ooh, what's his name?" "Ball Sniffer. He's a crotch hound. Let me know if you want to get circumcised. He's on duty around the clock." We have so many ways of saying hello. Howdy, hi there, how are you, how you doing, how's it going, how do you do, what's new, what's going on, what do you think, what do you hear, what do you say, what do you feel, what's happening, what's shaking, que pasa, what's going down, and what it is. You know my favorite? How's your hammer hanging? That's a good one, isn't it? Doesn't work too well with women, though. Unless you're talking to a lady carpenter. Then it's perfectly acceptable. I've always wanted to use that one on a high church official. Good evening, Your Holiness. How hangs thy hammer? So far, I haven't had that opportunity. There's one form of saying hello that bothers me. It's when a guy says to you, "Are they keeping you busy?" It's like he thinks someone has the right to come around and give me odd jobs. Whenever a guy says to me, "Are they keeping you busy?" I always tell him, "Well, your wife is keeping me pretty busy." And that seems to hold him for about a half an hour. Of course, we also have a lot of ways to say goodbye. Bye-bye, so long, see you later, ta-ta, be cool, take it easy, stay loose, hang in, take care, keep on trucking. You know my favorite? Don't get run over. Well, I find some people need practical advice. Occasionally someone will say to me, "Have a good one." I just laugh and say, "I already have a good one. Now I'm looking for a longer one." And that seems to hold them for about a half an hour. Then there are all the foreign ways we say goodbye. Some people, when they leave you, they think they have to get fancy. You know, they'll whip an arrivederci on you, or an au revoir. Some guys say adios, or the American version, "Adios, motherfucker." In Hawaii, they say aloha. That's a nice one. Means both hello and goodbye, which just goes to show, if you spend enough time in the sun, you don't know whether you're coming or going. Did you ever get in a rut with your manner of saying goodbye, and you find yourself using the same phrase over and over, and you begin to feel a little stupid? For instance, like if you're leaving a party, and you have to say goodbye to 5 or 6 people standing in a group, and you say, "Okay, hey, take it easy, okay, 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 hey, take it easy," and you feel like a goddamn moron. You know what I do? Every month, whether I need to or not, I change the way I say goodbye. I start using a different phrase. People like that. They notice that little extra effort. They'll say to me, "Pardon me, but didn't you used to say, 'Okay, hey, take it easy'?" And I say, "Yes, I did, but not anymore. Now I say, 'Farewell. Farewell till we meet again. May the forces of evil become confused on the way to your house.'" That's a strong one, isn't it? Yeah. People will remember you if you talk like that. Sometimes, for a joke, you can combine several ways of saying goodbye that don't seem to go together. Like, "Toodaloo, go with God and don't take any wooden nickels." Then people don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Or you can choose to say goodbye in a realistic manner. "So long, Steve. Don't let self-doubt interfere with your plans to improve your life." Well, some people need practical advice. In the midst of all my bitching, you might have noticed that I never complain about politicians. I leave that to other people. There's no shortage of volunteers. Everyone complains about politicians. Everyone says they suck. But where do people think these politicians come from? They don't fall out of the sky. They don't pass through a membrane from a separate reality. They come from American homes, American families, American schools, American churches, and American businesses, and they're elected by American voters. This is what our system produces, folks. This is the best we can do. Let's face it, we have very little to work with in this country. Garbage in, garbage out. Ignorant citizens elect ignorant leaders. It's as simple as that. And term limits don't help. All you do is get a brand new bunch of ignorant leaders. So maybe it's not the politicians who suck. Maybe it's something else. Like the public. That would be a nice, realistic campaign slogan for somebody, wouldn't it? The public sucks. Elect me. Put the blame where it belongs. On the people. Because if everything is really the fault of politicians, then where are all the bright, honest, intelligent Americans who are ready to step in and replace them? Where are these people hiding? The truth is, we don't have people like that. Everyone's at the mall scratching his balls and buying sneakers with lights in them and complaining about the politicians. For myself, I've solved this political dilemma in a very direct way. On Election Day, I stay home. 2 reasons. First of all, voting is meaningless. This country was bought and paid for a long time ago. That empty shit they shuffle around and repackage every 4 years doesn't mean a thing. Second, I don't vote because I firmly believe that if you vote, you have no right to complain. I know some people like to twist that around. They say, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? Think it through. If you vote and you elect dishonest, incompetent politicians and they screw things up, then you're responsible for what they've done. You voted them in. You caused the problem. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who in fact did not even leave the house on Election Day, am in no way responsible for what these politicians have done and have every right to complain about the mess you created, which I had nothing to do with. Why can't people see that? Now, I realized recently you folks had another one of those really swell presidential elections that you treasure so much. That was nice. I'm sure you had a good time, and I'm sure that everyone's life has now improved. But I'm happy to tell you that on Election Day, I stayed home. And I did essentially what you did. The only difference is when I got finished masturbating, I had something to show for it. Why was brown excluded from the rainbow? And where did indigo come from? I was taught there were 3 primary colors and 3 secondary colors. What's with this indigo shit? After the hurricane is gone, where do people put all that plywood? Standing ovations have become far too commonplace. What we need are ovations where the audience members all punch and kick one another. Watching television these days, I often wonder what happened to the vertical hold knob. I miss that. Don't you hate it when a rock band comes on stage and apparently the drummer has decided that somehow it's cool to wear a funny hat? There's a store near my house with a sign that says, unfinished furniture. I gotta go in there, 'cause I'm looking for a nice 3-legged table. If you live long enough, sooner or later, everyone you know has cancer. I was dancing with a woman the other night. She told me she had a yeast infection. I said, well, bake me a fucking loaf of bread. A couple of corn muffins, jelly donut, I don't give a shit. I'm in the market for quality baked goods. Why don't these people who live in hurricane-prone areas just keep some batteries on hand at home? Seems like a simple thing to me. I'm always relieved when someone is delivering a eulogy and I realize I'm listening to it. Why don't network TV shows have a warning that says, caution, you are about to watch a real piece of shit? Actually, they could just leave it on the screen all the time. All music is the blues. All of it. Electricity is nothing more than organized lightning. When you rub your eyes real hard, do you see sort of a checkerboard pattern? What is that? Coming soon to a theater near you. Actually, there is no theater near you. Look around your street. Is there a theater near you? Attention, certain women. Transporting children is not a license to drive slowly. I saw a sign that said, coming soon, a 24-hour restaurant. And I thought, well, that's unusual. Why would they open and close it so quickly? At least try it for a week or two and see if you can build a clientele. Why is it when the 2 main characters in an action movie have their big climactic fight, it always turns out that both of them are really good fighters? Just once, wouldn't you like to see a fight between 2 leading male characters where one of them gets the shit completely beat out of him in about 8 seconds? Especially the hero. Would someone please explain to me the supposed appeal of having grandchildren? People ask me, are you a grandfather yet? As if it's some great thing. I'm sure it has its charms, and I imagine some dull-witted people want to see their genes passed along just for the sheer novelty of the idea. But overall, I don't get it. Hey, it's been on my mind for some time, but I've never said it publicly, so here goes. Vo-do-de-o-do and a scotty-waddy-doo-dah-day. Thank you. Masturbation is not illegal, but if it were, people would probably take the law into their own hands. It used to be you got a tattoo because you wanted to be one of the few people who had a tattoo. Now you get a tattoo because you don't want to be one of the few people who don't have a tattoo. Just when I discovered the meaning of life, they changed it. People in Washington say it's not the initial offense that gets you in trouble, it's the cover-up. They say you should admit what you did, get the story out, and move on. What this overlooks is the fact that most of the time the cover-up works just fine and nobody finds out a thing. I would imagine that's the rule rather than the exception. My advice? Take a chance. Lie. Here's some fun you can have in a hotel. Smoke a big fat joint and then watch a complex spy movie with a lot of characters and plot twists. Then, a few weeks later, at a different hotel, smoke another joint and watch the same movie. It's like seeing a whole new film. But the real fun is that about every 15 minutes, something happens in the plot that you seem to know already. It's an odd feeling. By the way, this exercise can probably be repeated indefinitely with the same movie, as long as the grass holds out. This is just one more way of starting a sentence with the word this and ending it with the word that. Here's an odd piece of slang I ran across. A woman who fucks a priest is said to have taken a ride on the holy pole. I make fun of people who are religious because I think they're fundamentally weak. But I want you to know that on a personal level, when it comes to believing in God, I tried. I really, really tried. I tried to believe that there's a God who created us in his own image, loves us very much, and keeps a close eye on things. I tried to believe it. But I gotta tell you, the longer you live and the more you look around, the more you realize something is fucked up. Something is wrong. War, disease, death, destruction, hunger, filth, poverty, torture, crime, corruption, and the ice-capades. Something is definitely wrong. If this is the best God can do, I am not impressed. Results like these do not belong on the resume of a supreme being. This is the kind of stuff you'd expect from an office temp with a bad attitude. In any well-managed universe, this guy would have been out on his all-powerful ass a long time ago. So if there is a God, if there is, I think reasonable people might agree he's at least incompetent, and maybe, just maybe, he doesn't give a shit, which I admire in a person, and which would explain a lot of his results. So rather than becoming just another mindless religious robot, blindly believing that everything is in the hands of some spooky, incompetent father figure who doesn't give a shit, I decided to look around for something else to worship. Something I could really count on, and immediately I thought of the sun. It happened in an instant. Overnight, I became a sun worshiper. Well, not overnight. You can't see the sun in the dark. But first thing the next morning, I became a sun worshiper. For several reasons. First of all, I can see the sun, okay? Unlike some other gods I could mention, I can actually see the sun. I'm big on that. If I can see something, I don't know, it kind of helps the credibility. Every day I can see the sun as it gives me everything I need. Heat, light, food, flowers in the park, reflections on the lake, an occasional skin cancer, but hey, at least there are no crucifixions. And we sun worshippers don't go around killing other people simply because they don't agree with us. Sun worship is fairly simple. There's no mystery, no miracles, no pageantry, no one asks for money, there are no songs to learn, and we don't have a special building where we all gather once a week to compare clothing. And the best thing about the sun, it never tells me I'm unworthy. It doesn't tell me I'm a bad person who needs to be saved. Hasn't said an unkind word. Treats me fine. So, I worship the sun. But I don't pray to the sun. You know why? Because I wouldn't presume on our friendship. It's not polite. I've often thought people treat God rather rudely. Trillions and trillions of prayers every day, asking and pleading and begging for favors. Do this, give me that, I need this, I want that. And most of this praying takes place on Sunday, his day off. It's not nice, and it's no way to treat a friend. But still, people do pray, and they pray for many different things. And that's okay with me. I say pray for anything you want. Pray for anything. But What about the divine plan? Remember that, the divine plan? A long time ago, God came up with a divine plan. He gave it a lot of thought. He decided it was a good plan, and he put it into practice. And for billions and billions of years, the divine plan has been doing just fine. Now you come along and pray for something. Well, suppose the thing you're praying for isn't in God's divine plan. What do you want him to do? Change his plan? Just for you? Isn't that sort of arrogant? It's a divine plan. What good is being God if every rundown schmuck with a $2 prayer book can come along and fuck with your plan? And here's another problem you might encounter. Suppose your prayers aren't answered. What do you do then? What do you say? Well, it's God's will. Thy will be done. Fine. But if it's God's will, and he's going to do what he wants to anyway, why bother praying in the first place? Doesn't it seem like a big waste of time? Couldn't you just skip the praying part and go straight to his will? It's all very confusing to me. So to get around all this, I decided to worship the sun. But as I said, I don't pray to the sun. You know who I pray to? Joe Pesci. 2 reasons. First of all, I think he's a pretty good actor. To me, that counts. Second, he looks like a guy who can get things done. Joe doesn't fuck around. In fact, he came through on a couple of things that God was having trouble with. For years, I asked God to do something about my noisy neighbor's barking dog. Nothing happened. But Joe Pesci, he straightened that shit out with 1 visit. It's amazing what you can accomplish with a simple piece of athletic equipment. So I've been praying to Joe for a couple of years now, and I've noticed something. I've noticed that all the prayers I used to offer to God and all the prayers I now offer to Joe Pesci are being answered at about the same 50% rate. Half the time I get what I want, half the time I don't. Same as God, 50-50. Same as the 4-leaf clover, the horseshoe, the wishing well, and the rabbit's foot. Same as the mojo man or the voodoo lady who tells you your fortune by squeezing a goat's testicles. It's all the same, 50-50. So just pick a superstition you like, sit back, make a wish, and enjoy yourself. And for those of you who look to the Bible for its moral lessons and literary qualities, I have a couple of other stories I'd like to recommend. You might want to try The 3 Little Pigs. That's a good one. It has a nice happy ending. And there's always Little Red Riding Hood, although it does have that one X-rated part where the big bad wolf actually eats the grandmother, which I didn't care for. And finally, I've always drawn a great deal of moral comfort from Humpty Dumpty. The part I like best: all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. That's because there is no Humpty Dumpty, folks, and there is no God. None, not one, never was, no God. Sorry. You know, they say that just before you die, your life flashes before your eyes, especially if it's a sudden death. It's like a little personal movie of your own. But it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, mathematically, how would that work? Let's say you're swimming at the beach, and you get caught in a riptide and it pulls you out to sea, and you panic and begin swallowing water. Since you're about to die, the flashback movie begins to roll. Well, it seems to me that if it's really a flashback of your entire life, you'd have to watch the whole thing. And that would include the ending, which means seeing yourself arrive at the beach, walk into the surf, start to drown, and have the movie start all over again. Therefore, you'd have to watch it a second time, which would include arriving at the beach, walking into the surf. You get what I mean? Thanks to the flashback, you can never die. The movie runs forever. I don't like euphemistic language, words that shade the truth. American English is packed with euphemism because Americans have trouble dealing with reality, and in order to shield themselves from it, they use soft language. And somehow it gets worse with every generation. Here's an example. There's a condition in combat that occurs when a soldier is completely stressed out and is on the verge of nervous collapse. In World War I, it was called shell shock. Simple, honest, direct language. 2 syllables. Shell shock. It almost sounds like the guns themselves. That was more than 80 years ago. Then a generation passed, and in World War II, the same combat condition was called battle fatigue. 4 syllables now. Takes a little longer to say. Doesn't seem to hurt as much. Fatigue is a nicer word than shock. Shell shock. Battle fatigue. By the early 1950s, the Korean War had come along, and the very same condition was being called operational exhaustion. The phrase was up to 8 syllables now, and any last traces of humanity had been completely squeezed out of it, like something that might happen to your car. Then, barely 15 years later, we got into Vietnam, and thanks to the deceptions surrounding that war, it's no surprise that the very same condition was referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder. Still 8 syllables, but we've added a hyphen, and the pain is completely buried under jargon. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'll bet if they'd have been calling it shell shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have received the attention they needed. But it didn't happen, and one of the reasons is that soft language. The language that takes the life out of life. And somehow, it keeps getting worse. Here are some more examples. At some point in my life, toilet paper became bathroom tissue. Sneakers became running shoes. False teeth became dental appliances. Medicine turned into medication. Information became directory assistance. The dump became the landfill. Motels turned into motor lodges. House trailers into mobile homes. Used cars into previously owned vehicles. Room service became guest room dining. Riots became civil disorders. A strike was a job action. A zoo turned into a wildlife park. The jungle became a rainforest. The swamp became a wetlands. Glasses became prescription eyewear. Garages became parking structures. Drug addiction became substance abuse. Soap operas turned into daytime dramas. A gambling joint became a gaming resort. A prostitute became a sex worker. Theaters became performing arts centers. Wife-beating became domestic violence, and constipation became occasional irregularity. When I was a little boy, if I got sick, I went to a doctor, who sent me to a hospital to be treated by other doctors. Now I go to a family practitioner who belongs to a health maintenance organization which sends me to a wellness center to be treated by health care delivery professionals. Poor people used to live in slums. Now, the economically disadvantaged occupy substandard housing in the inner cities. And a lot of them are broke. They don't have negative cash flow. They're broke because many of them were fired. In other words, management wanted to curtail redundancies in the human resources area, and so many workers are no longer viable members of the workforce. Smug, greedy, well-fed white people have invented a language to conceal their sins. It's as simple as that. The CIA doesn't kill anybody, they neutralize people, or they depopulate an area. The government doesn't lie, it engages in disinformation. The Pentagon actually measures nuclear radiation in something called sunshine units. Israeli murderers are called commandos, Arab commandos are called terrorists. The Contra killers were known as freedom fighters. Well, if crime fighters fight crime and firefighters fight fire, what do freedom fighters fight? And some of this softened language is just silly and embarrassing. On the airlines, they say they're going to pre-board passengers in need of special assistance. Cripples. Simple, honest, direct language. There's no shame attached to the word cripple. No shame. It's a word used in Bible translations. Jesus healed the cripples. It doesn't take 6 words to describe that condition. But we don't have cripples anymore. Instead, we have the physically challenged. Is that a grotesque enough evasion for you? How about differently abled? I've actually heard cripples referred to as differently abled. You can't even call them handicapped anymore. They'll say, we're not handicapped, we're handy-capable. These poor suckers have been bullshitted by the system into believing that if you change the name of the condition, somehow you'll change the condition. Well, it doesn't work that way. I'm sure you've noticed we have no deaf people in this country, hearing impaired. And no one's blind, partially sighted, or visually impaired. And thank God we no longer have stupid children. Today's kids all have learning disabilities. Or they're minimally exceptional. How would you like to be told that about your child? Actually, it sounds faintly positive. Your son is minimally exceptional. Oh, thank God for that, I guess. Best of all, psychologists now call ugly people those with severe appearance deficits. Things are so bad that any day I expect to hear a rape victim referred to as an unwilling sperm recipient. Of course, it's been obvious for some time that there are no old people in this country anymore. They all died, and what we have now are senior citizens. How's that for a lifeless, typically American 20th century phrase? There's no pulse in a senior citizen. But that's a term I've come to accept. That's what old people are going to be called. But the phrase I will continue to resist is when they describe an old person as being 90 years young. Imagine how sad the fear of aging that is revealed in that phrase, to be unable even to use the word old, to have to use its antonym. And I understand the fear of aging is natural. It's universal, isn't it? No one wants to get old. No one wants to die. But we do. We die. And we don't like that. So we bullshit ourselves. I started bullshitting myself when I reached my 40s. I'd look in the mirror and say, well, I guess I'm getting older. Older sounds better than old, doesn't it? Sounds like it might even last a little longer. Bullshit. I'm getting old, and it's okay. But the baby boomers can't handle that. And remember, the boomers invented most of this soft language. So now they've come up with a new life phase, pre-elderly. They say they're pre-elderly. How sad. How relentlessly sad. But it's all right, folks, because thanks to our fear of death, no one has to die. They can all just pass away or expire like a magazine subscription. If it happens in the hospital, it'll be called a terminal episode. The insurance company will refer to it as negative patient care outcome. And if it's the result of malpractice, they'll say it was a therapeutic misadventure. To be honest, some of this language makes me want to vomit. Well, perhaps vomit is too strong a word. It makes me want to engage in an involuntary personal protein spill. You know one of the biggest rip-offs in the world? Flowers. They grow free all over the world, and yet we pay for them. And then they die. That seems strange. Flowers are one of the few things we buy, bring home, watch die, and we don't ask for our money back. Normally we'd be screaming at a merchant over something like that. Hey, what kind of shit is this? Give me my money back. The fucking thing's keeled over right on the piano. The caterpillar does all the work, but the butterfly gets all the publicity. Tits always look better in a pink sweater. You know what you don't see enough of on television? A good parachute accident. It's kind of fun. Ask your dry cleaner if he can remove the stains from one pair of pants and put them in another. He should be able to do that for the same amount of money. While you're in there, ask him if he can remove semen from a wedding veil. That's the test of a really good dry cleaner. To me, fast food is when a cheetah eats an antelope. That's fast. Two men whose names you see a lot on air conditioner dials. Norm and Max. Who are they? Have you ever been kissing someone and one of you has a snot that's whistling? It takes your mind off the sex, because it requires a 3-step solution. First of all, you have to figure out whose nose it's in. Then you have to determine which nostril. Finally, someone has to dig in there and, if not completely remove it, at least push it to one side so it doesn't whistle anymore. By the way, during all this activity, the man usually loses his heart-on. A crumb is a great thing. If you break a crumb in half, you don't get 2 half crumbs, you get 2 crumbs. Doesn't that violate some law of physics? I think I am, therefore I am. I think. Have you ever noticed that when you're torturing a guy, after a while you get real tired and you don't know what to do to him next? Then you think of something and you sort of get your energy back. Any man with a small mustache wearing a bow tie and a loud vest is an asshole. A cat will blink when struck with a hammer. I think reception lines would be a lot more interesting if instead of shaking hands, people greeted each other with a kick in the groin. The reason the mainstream is thought of as a stream is because it's so shallow. Here's a bumper sticker I actually saw. Horn broke, watch for finger. Here's some fun you can have at the ballpark. Did you ever notice a lot of guys bring a glove to the ball game to catch a foul ball? Never mind that, bring a bat. When a foul ball comes flying toward you, hit it back to the players. Everyone will sense you're a fun fan. They'll be glad they came to the ballpark on straitjacket night. I read somewhere that for the average person, 14 farts a day are considered normal. Based on these figures, and judging from my own output, I have to assume there are millions of people who never fart at all. I don't have a fear of heights. I do, however, have a fear of falling from heights. Isn't it a good feeling when you read the tabloids and you realize that a lot of famous people are just as fucked up as you are? The justice system should have a penalty whereby they take you to prison and for 10 years the guards take turns doing that Three Stooges jabbing two fingers in the eyes thing. I think that would straighten a lot of guys out. I noticed in the newspaper that track and field has an event called the Women's Pole Vault. It makes me wonder, with all the options available to her in this age, how does a young woman get interested in pole vaulting? Seems like a bizarre choice. By the way, I hope you noticed I completely ignored the obvious opportunity for a cheap phallic joke. If I ever lose my mind, I hope some honest person will find it and take it to Lost and Found. In some hotels, they give you a little sewing kit. You know what I do? I sew the towels together. One time I sewed a button on a lampshade. I like to leave a mark. This goes under the category, what's wrong with America? There are schools in Fairfax County, Virginia, where kids are not allowed to win soccer games. Whenever a team gets 2 goals ahead, they have to give up 1 player. Pathetic. The Asian country known as Mongolia used to be called Outer Mongolia, and just below the Outer Mongolian border with China, there was an autonomous region called Inner Mongolia. And since each of them had its own inner and outer regions, that means that at one time there existed, fairly close to one another, an outer Inner Mongolia and an inner Outer Mongolia. I like that sort of thing. I like picturing the road signs and all the people taking wrong turns. When someone with an artificial heart dies, I think they should take out the heart, hook it up to an artificial body, and just let it go at that. I have a proposition. I think if white people are going to burn down black churches, then black people ought to burn down the House of Blues. What a disgrace that place is, the House of Blues. You know what they ought to call it? The House of Lame White Motherfuckers. Inauthentic, low-frequency, lame white motherfuckers. Especially these male movie stars who think they're blues artists. You ever see these guys? Don't you just want to puke in your soup? When one of these fat, overweight, out-of-shape, middle-aged, pasty-faced, baldy-headed movie stars with sunglasses jumps on stage and starts blowing into a harmonica, it's a fucking sacrilege. In the first place, white people got no business playing the blues ever, at all, under any circumstances. What the fuck do white people have to be blue about? Banana Republic ran out of khakis? The espresso machine is jammed? Hootie and the Blowfish are breaking up? Shit, white people ought to understand their job is to give people the blues, not to get them, and certainly not to sing or play them. I'll tell you a little secret about the blues. It's not enough to know which notes to play. You gotta know why they need to be played. And another thing, I don't think white people should be trying to dance like blacks. Stop that! Stick to your faggoty polkas and waltzes, and that repulsive country line dancing shit that you do. And be yourself, be proud, be lame, be white, and get the fuck off the dance floor. Here's something I wonder. When Britain returned Hong Kong to China, there was a long formal ceremony. I saw it on television, and the whole thing looked very well rehearsed. And I wondered how everyone knew exactly where to stand and what to do. I mean, after all, the event had never taken place before. How could there be a set of procedures? Do the British have a manual on returning colonies? Well, if they do, they won't be needing it much longer. And I noticed the same thing is true when a pope or a king dies. The elaborate funerals always involve at least 30 or 40 groups of participants, each with different roles and different garb, and each of whom seems to know exactly where to walk, when to stop, and where to stand. And everyone knows all the songs and prayers by heart. Can someone tell me when these people practice all this pageantry? I'm not too enthusiastic about this organ donor idea. What bothers me most is that it's run by the Motor Vehicle Bureau, okay? I figure if I have to wait in line that long for a kidney, fuck it, I'll do without. They send you a little card you're supposed to carry in your wallet next to your driver's license. You're supposed to list the organs you're willing to donate in case you die. Are these people crazy? Do you honestly believe that if a paramedic finds that card on you after an accident, he's going to be trying to save your life? No way! He's looking for fucking parts. Look, Sid, here's that lower intestine we've been hoping for. Never mind the CPR, this man's a donor. Fuck that. If these people want something of mine, they can have my appendix. That's it. That's all I'm giving. Put it in the cooler and get the fuck out of here. And don't go pulling any plugs on me either. That's another bunch of macho bullshit floating around. People talking about, just pull the plug on me. If I'm comatose, lying there like a vegetable, just go ahead and pull the plug. And I say, fuck you. Leave my plug alone. Get an extension cord for my plug. I want everything you got. Tubes, cords, plugs, probes, electrodes, IVs. You find I got an orifice that's not being used, stick a fucking tube in it. Vegetable shit. I don't care if I look like an artichoke. Save my ass. If you ever find out I'm comatose, just remember there are 3 things I gotta have. Ice cream, morphine, and TV. Give me that ice cream about every 2 hours. Give me that morphine about, every 10 minutes. And turn on the fucking TV. I want to watch Survivor. And don't be coming to visit me either. I got no time for live people. I'm brain dead here. Ain't you got no respect for the brain dead? Hey, you got to be brain dead to watch Survivor in the first place. Might as well watch it when you're clinically brain dead. One more thought concerning this comatose stuff, and this might come in handy for you someday. If you know a homosexual who is comatose, remember, you can always comfort his family by saying, "Look at it this way, folks. He was a fruit, now he's a vegetable. At least he's still in the produce section." Long time ago, I had a little dog named Tippy. And one time when I was doing drugs, I fed Tippy a whole bunch of Cracker Jack, 'cause that's what I was having. Cracker Jack and tap water. Seemed like a reasonable meal to me. And even though Tippy was a little dog, she ate about 2 boxes of Cracker Jack. And the next day, when I took her out for a walk, she squatted and strained and grunted and shook, and you know what? By God, instead of taking a shit, she took a Cracker Jack. Right in front of my eyes, I saw a fully formed, undigested Cracker Jack coming out of my dog. Well, you know me, I'm a practical guy. I kept waiting for the little surprise to come out, hoping it wouldn't be a whistle or a bird call. I figure there's a certain amount of basic hygiene you just don't want to ignore. A lot of people in this country want to tell you what you can and can't talk about. Or sometimes they'll tell you can talk about something, but you can't joke about it, like rape. People say you can't joke about rape. They say rape's not funny. And I say, fuck you, I think it's hilarious. How do you like that? I can prove rape is funny. Picture Porky Pig raping Daisy Duck. See? Hey, why do you think they call him Porky? And I know what men are going to say. Daisy was asking for it. She was coming on to Porky. She had on tight feathers. Porky got horny and he lost control. A lot of men talk like that. They blame it on the woman, you know. They say, she had it coming. She was wearing a short skirt. Doesn't seem fair to me. Doesn't seem right. But I believe you can joke about it. I believe you can joke about anything. Just depends on how you construct the joke, what the exaggeration is. Every joke needs one exaggeration. Every joke needs one thing to be way out of proportion. I'll give you an example. Have you ever seen a news story like this? Some burglar breaks into a house, steals some things, and while he's in there, he rapes an 81-year-old woman. And you think to yourself, why? What the fuck kind of social life does this guy have? I want to ask him, why did you do that? But I know what I'd hear. Hey, she was coming on to me. She had on a tight bathrobe. And I'm thinking, next time be a little more selective, will you? Now, speaking of rape, but changing the subject slightly, you know what I wonder? I wonder, is there more rape at the equator or the North Pole? I mean, per capita. I know the populations are different. I think it's the North Pole. Most people think it's the equator. Because it's hot down there, you know, people don't wear a lot of clothing, guys can see women's tits and they get horny, and there's a lot of rape and a lot of fucking in general. But that's exactly why there's less rape at the equator. Because there's a lot of fucking in general. You can tell the equator has a lot of fucking. Look at the population figures. Billions of people live near the equator. How many Eskimos we got? 30? 35? No one's getting laid at the North Pole. It's too cold. An Eskimo says to his wife, "Hey, honey, how about some pussy?"
She says, "Wally, are you crazy? The wind chill is 150 below.
Eskimo guys are deprived, they're horny, they get pent up, and every now and then they gotta rape somebody. Now, the biggest problem an Eskimo rapist has is trying to get wet leather leggings off a woman who doesn't want to take them off. Have you ever tried to pull leather pants off someone who's trying to kick you in the nuts? Takes a lot of effort, and in the process, you'd lose your hard-on. In fact, at the North Pole, your dick would shrivel up like a stack of dimes. That's another thing I wonder. Does a rapist have a hard-on when he leaves the house in the morning? Or does it develop during the day while he's walking around checking out the gals? Just wondering. I've figured out how to commit the perfect double murder. You pick one person up by the ankles and beat the other person to death with him. They both die, and there's no murder weapon. Peg-Leg Bates's wife is one person who never had to wait for the other shoe to drop. Did you ever have a hatchet go right through your face? Not a glancing blow, but a full-on shot deep into your forehead, huh? Deep enough so you can shake your head and the hatchet doesn't fall out? It's the strangest feeling. Because just after the hatchet goes in, and before there's any pain, you can feel a gentle puff of cool air on your brain. It feels good, but since it's the only way to get that feeling, I try not to get too hung up on it. When did they pass a law that says the people who make my sandwich have to be wearing gloves? I'm not comfortable with this at all. I don't want glove residue all over my food. It's not sanitary. Who knows where these gloves have been? Let's get back to human hands making sandwiches for human beings. As you swim the river of life, do the breaststroke. It helps to clear the turds from your path. Have you ever tried to throw away an old wastebasket? You can't do it. People keep bringing it back. "Here, Howie, I found your wastebasket in the garbage." Apparently, you have to completely destroy a wastebasket in order to convince people you really don't want it anymore. In Los Angeles, there's a hotline for people in denial. So far, no one has called. Just once, I'd like to see a high-speed funeral procession. A hearse, some flower cars, and a bunch of limousines tearing ass through town at 70 miles an hour on their way to the cemetery. Maybe someday a race car driver will put that in his will. You know a business that doesn't lend itself too easily to the internet? Pay toilets. Here's something I consider a crime against society. Women with hyphenated names. Hey, lady, pick a fucking name, will you? Hi, I'm Emily Jericho Fortescue. Hi, I'm George Jerk Me Off Fuck You Too. Attention women. You don't attain self-esteem or personal dignity by adding a name to your name. Modern feminists apparently think that hyphenation is some kind of radical act. It's not. Castrating a man in a parking lot with a Coke bottle is a radical act. Hyphenating your name is pretentious middle-class bullshit. No one ever knows what's next, but they always do it. You know what they don't have? A really good French football player. You never hear about some guy named Pierre Ledoux smashing through the line of scrimmage and picking up a first down. Why is that? Here's some fun you can have. Go into a gun store, buy a gun, then buy some ammunition, then ask them if they have any ski masks. I have a very inexpensive security system. If someone breaks into my house, I run next door and throw a brick through my neighbor's window. That sets off his alarm, and when the police arrive, I direct them to my house. As immigrants from Asia become more completely assimilated into American society over the next few generations, their standards of hard work and academic excellence will drop, and they'll feel more at home here. Some teenage girls delay getting abortions because they're afraid to comply with the parental notification laws, especially if one of the parents also happens to be the father of the child. Here's a plastic surgery option. Have one nostril sewn shut. I feel like I might be ready for that. Regarding the Pledge of Allegiance and other patriotic nonsense, what does placing your hand over your heart have to do with anything? Or removing your hat when the flag is passing by? Am I missing something? True fact. There is actually a tow truck Hall of Fame. I just realized I haven't been scared in a really long time. Didn't the first guy who wore a sombrero realize it was completely impractical for eating pussy? I don't understand motivation books. What happened here? Suddenly everybody needs to be motivated? It's a fairly simple thing. Either you want to do something or you don't. There's no mystery. Besides, if you're motivated enough to go to the store to buy a motivation book, aren't you motivated enough to do that? So you don't need the book. Put it back. Tell the clerk, fuck you, I'm going home. I'm already motivated. You know a word you don't hear enough anymore? Hosiery. The latest disaster for the rest of the universe is that the United States is going to go to Mars. Okay? Oh, yeah. We're going to go to Mars. And then, of course, we're going to colonize deep space. With our microwave hot dogs and fake vomit, plastic dog shit, cinnamon dental floss, lemon-scented toilet paper, edible women's panties, and sneakers with lights in the heels. And all these other impressive things we've done down here. But let me ask you this. What are we going to tell the Intergalactic Space Council the first time one of our teenage mothers throws her newborn baby into a dumpster, huh? How are we going to explain that to the space people? How are we going to tell them that our ambassador was late for the meeting because his breakfast was cold and he had to spend half an hour punching his wife around the kitchen? And what are they going to think when we tell them it's just a local custom that over 80 million women in the third world have had their clitorises forcibly removed to reduce their sexual pleasure so they won't cheat on their husbands? Can't you see them out there with their red carpet and brass band just a-waiting for those intelligent, enlightened human beings to drop by? No wonder we can't get any radio signals from these people. They're not sending any. They're too afraid we'll answer them. This is a list of people I can do without. Guys in their 50s named Skip. Anyone who pays for vaginal jelly with a platinum credit card. An airline pilot wearing 2 different shoes. A proctologist with poor depth perception. A pimp who drives a Ford Escort. A gynecologist who wants my wife to have 3 quaaludes before the examination. Guys with a lot of small pins on their hats. Anyone who mentions Jesus more than 300 times in a 2-minute conversation. A dentist with blood in his hair. Any woman whose hobby is breastfeeding zoo animals. A funeral director who says, "Hope to see you folks again real soon." A man with only one lip. A Boy Scout master who works at a dildo shop. People who know the 3rd verse to the Star-Spangled Banner. Any lawyer who refers to the police as the federales. A cross-eyed nun with a bullwhip and a bottle of gin. Guys who have their names printed on their belts. A brain surgeon with "Born to Lose" tattooed on his hand. Couples whose children's names all start with the same initial. A man in a hospital gown directing traffic. A waitress with a visible infection on her serving hand. People who have large gums and small teeth. Guys who wear the same underwear until it begins to cut off the circulation to their crotch. and any woman whose arm hair completely covers her wristwatch. When I was young, most kids in my neighborhood drank beer before they discovered pot. Everybody drank first. Saturday night we drank beer and puked on our shoes. It was an Irish neighborhood. Drink and puke, that was it. A great American tradition. It still goes on today. But then in 1950, when I was 13, we heard about pot. We discovered that on pot you didn't stagger, you didn't puke on your shoes, and your breath didn't smell, which was important, because as a kid, when you came home from drinking, there were two breath smells that could give you away: alcohol and puke. So we found that when you smoked pot, you could withstand your mother's closest scrutiny. Because let's face it, you'd come home drunk so often, wearing someone else's clothing, that your mother was now openly asking to smell your breath. "Come here, mister. Let me smell the breath." "Ah, no booze or puke. That's a good boy. What's that under your arm?" "2 boxes of Oreos." "That's a good boy." "Good night, Ma." "Cool." What is all this nonsense about angels? Do you realize 3 out of 4 Americans now believe in angels? What are they, fucking stupid? Has everybody lost their goddamn minds? Angels, my ass. You know what I think it is? I think it's a massive collective chemical flashback from all the drugs, smoked, swallowed, snorted, and shot up by all Americans from 1960 to 2000. 40 years of adulterated street drugs will get you some fucking angels, my friend. Angel shit. What about goblins? Did anybody believe in goblins? And zombies? Where the fuck are all the zombies? That's the trouble with zombies. They're unreliable. I say if you're going to buy that angel bullshit, you may as well go for the goblin zombie package as well. Here's another horrifying example of a declining American culture. The continued pussification of the male population, this time in the form of Harley-Davidson theme restaurants. What the fuck is going on? Harley-Davidson used to mean something. It stood for biker attitude, grimy outlaws and their sweaty mamas full of beer and crank, rolling around on Harleys looking for a good time, destroying property, raping teenagers, and killing policemen. All very necessary activities. But now, theme restaurants. And this soft shit obviously didn't come from hardcore bikers. It came from these weekend motorcyclists, these fraudulent 2-day-a-week lame assholes who have their bikes trucked into Sturgis, South Dakota for the big rally and then ride around town like they just come in off the road. Lawyers and dentists and pussy boy software designers getting up on Harleys because they think it makes them cool. Well, hey, Skeezix, you ain't cool. You're fucking chilly. And chilly ain't never been cool. Here's a list of things to do from a day in the life of Henry VIII. Wake up, fuck the queen, take a shit, kill the queen, eat 6 chickens, get married, kill the new queen, eat a cow, take a shit, start dating, belch for an hour, eat a sheep, kill my date, defy the pope, eat a goat, take a shit, fuck a bishop, get engaged, kill my fiancé, eat a pig, marry a pig, kill the pig, eat the pope, vomit, go to sleep. I always refer to any individual member of the Red Sox as a Red Sock. Is this correct? America, where the Irish, English, Germans, Scandinavians, Poles, and Italians all came together to kill Indians, lynch niggers, and beat the shit out of Spics and Jews. Next guy who says to me bada boom bada bing is getting kicked right in the fucking nuts. I was one of the people at Woodstock who took the brown acid. Let me tell you, there was nothing wrong with it. Never forget, Hitler was a Catholic. Here would be a good epitaph for some guy. I want everyone to know it was great being alive, and I really enjoyed myself. I especially enjoyed fucking and going to the movies. If you listen to his voice carefully without looking at the screen, Ted Koppel sounds like he's taking a shit. There's a thing called shaken baby syndrome that people get upset about. Personally, I think you have to give him a good shake. or they don't bake uniformly. The Golden Gate Bridge should have a long bungee cord for people who aren't quite ready to commit suicide but want to get in a little practice. If a movie is described as a romantic comedy, you can usually find me next door playing pinball. Somehow, I enjoy watching people suffer. My most frequent sex fantasy: to work in a delicatessen and have a woman come in and ask me to give her a pound of tongue. And I'd say, "Well, I don't get off till 4 o'clock. And she'd say, "Well, I don't get off at all. That's why I want some tongue." If they decide to cover Viagra under Medicare, we'll all be paying for other people's hard-ons. You know what they ought to have? Motherfuckers Day. The day after Mother's Day ought to be Motherfuckers Day. Actually, when you think about it, Father's Day is Motherfuckers Day. Attention men, the dumb-looking shaved head thing has finally played out. Try to find some other way of pretending to be cool and different. In applying the stereotype that all old people are slow-thinking and dull-witted, what's often overlooked is that many of these people were slow-thinking and dull-witted throughout their lives. At this point, they're simply older versions of the same unimpressive people. My main operating principle: don't take any shit from the zeitgeist. History is not happenstance. It is conspiratorial, carefully planned, and executed by people in power. The mayfly lives only one day, and sometimes it rains. You know what you never hear about anymore? Quicksand. When I was a kid, movies and comic books had quicksand all the time. What happened? Same thing with whirlpools. You never hear about some guy being sucked down into a whirlpool anymore. I miss that. I think they ought to have black confetti. It'd be great for funerals, especially if the dead person wasn't too popular. If you really want to put a faith healer to the test, tell him you want a smaller shoe size. Did you ever notice you never seem to get laid on Thanksgiving? I think it's 'cause all the coats are on the bed. In the United States, anyone can be president. That's the problem. You know how you can tell when a moth farts? When he suddenly flies in a straight line. Do you realize that somewhere in the world there exists a person who qualifies as the worst doctor? If you took the time, by process of elimination, you could actually determine the worst doctor in the world. And the funny part is, someone has an appointment to see him tomorrow. I often think of something my grandfather used to say. You know, he'd look at me and he'd say, "I'm going upstairs and fuck your grandma." Well, he was a really honest man. He wasn't going to bullshit a 4-year-old. Just beyond the edge of the solar system, in the Oort cloud, there's a swarm of about 1 trillion comets orbiting the sun. Let's hope that right now one of them is turning slightly and pointing itself directly at Mississippi. The police in Los Angeles said recently that someone had been stabbed in the San Pedro area. Believe me, I know how painful that can be. I was once bitten there by a dog. It's especially painful when you go to the bathroom. Doesn't Jonesboro sound to you like a place where everyone has a drug habit? Here's something that pisses me off. Retired people who don't want to pay local property taxes because they say it's not their grandchildren who go to the schools. Mean-spirited retirees, usually from out of state, cheap, selfish, old bush voters. The ones I read about were in Arizona, AARP members. They take a shit the size of a peanut and think it's an accomplishment. And it's not like these retirement people can't afford the tax money. Not all old people are as dependent on Social Security checks as they'd like you to think. Some of them get all kinds of checks. Social Security, the VA, private pensions, government pensions. They also have stock dividends, bank interest, and whatever else they've managed to squeeze out of the system. And still, they begrudge their local property taxes simply because their own fucked-up, cross-eyed grandchildren aren't going to use the schools. Fuck 'em. I say pay your taxes and die like everyone else. I hope they choke on an early bird dinner. I never did well at Monopoly. I guess I don't have a business mind. Oh, I'd usually manage to own a couple of railroads, and waterworks, of course. I'm not a complete asshole. I know a monopoly when I see one. Everybody needs water. But it always frustrated me that the other guys wouldn't let me build houses on waterworks. They said it was zoning or some shit like that. I think they were just jealous that I had vision. The worst fight I ever got into was when I tried to put hotels on the electric company. Vision. As far as other properties were concerned, naturally, I'd snap up Baltic Avenue as soon as that became available. How much is that son of a bitch? $60? Give me that mother. I gotta have a place to live. About the best thing I'd ever own would be 1 or 2 properties in the light blue series. Maybe Oriental Avenue. No houses, of course. Just an excavation or 2. That's about all I ever had on my property. Plans. Surveyor's marks. I just couldn't get financing. All my friends would have shopping centers, malls, condominiums, industrial parks, and they liked to rub it in. Oh boy, Carlin, you're coming down my side of the board now. Get ready to pay up. Oh, no, please, God, give me a big one. Then I'd roll the dice. Hot shit, a 12. Thank you, God. Jump, 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 jump. Fuck you, Tony. I ain't even stopping on your side. Fuck you and Boardwalk, too. That's all right, Carlin. You'll be around again. But of course you can't move your token until you remember which one is yours. Which one is mine? Am I the hat? I could swear I was the hat. No, that was yesterday. Wait, I know. The racing car. I'm the racing car. Hey, who's the ship? Richie, are you the ship?
No, he's not the ship. I'm the ship. I get the ship every game. Don't even touch the fucking ship.
Tony was the biggest guy. None of them wanted to be the iron. Too feminine. The worst token to have was the cannon, the big gun. It was the only top-heavy token. It kept falling over. Throw the dice anywhere near it, and it fell on its side. And then some anal retentive would say, "Who has the gun? Are you the gun? Would you pick it up, please? And you, Paulie, are you in jail or just visiting? Well, if you're just visiting, put the car on the side of the jail, not on the actual jail part." Some guys really cared. That's why they won. I never won. But I was always in there at the end, because I had all the $1 bills, $2,500 in singles, and they needed me to make change. I'd always try to borrow money. "Please, Tony, just $5. I want to buy some gum."
Fuck you, Carlin. I'll give you $5 for waterworks.
10.
$7.50.
Tony, they don't have a 50-cent bill.
Tough shit. Tear a dollar in half.
No, I wasn't very good at the game. But I spent a lot of time landing on chance, and I always tried to buy it. I got in more fights trying to buy chance. I'd move my token. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Chance. Turn over the card. A little man with a hat. $200 for being an asshole.
Hey, Richie, shuffle those cards, will you? That's the second time I got that one.
Well, there you have it, folks. Situation rectified. Plenty of nice things to play for your friends. That is, if you're considering living alone for the rest of your life. I'll see you soon. Oh, and don't forget...
This has been a production of Highbridge Audio.